Hello and welcome to the 17th edition of the Echo Chamberlain Livestream. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and it's not as if much has happened in the world of politics or culture since we've been gone. So let's get straight ahead to bringing on the guests. My first guest, with his virtues and qualities, must be shielded from any prospect of incident and harm for the sustained betterment and abidance of all of us, because, according to the TVA, he is our universe's anchor being. He is Mr. Greg Owen. Good morning.
I am canon accurate Greg Owen that you have here with you, not some synth. I appreciate you having me on, sir. Doing my best to hold it all together.
Yeah, you're enjoying the sudden upheavals in the political scene. I'm enjoying watching the conventions because you know what I love more than anything? It's people at podiums asking torturously long and loud rhetorical questions. So Greg Owen, are you willing to tell me how good these conventions are?
Yeah!
Are you ready to fight for a better America?
We're gonna do it!
Yeah. So the convention's happening just up the street from you in Chicago.
Yes, and my favorite thing about the conventions are the props. A few years ago, at the Republican convention, there was a literal golden idol of Donald Trump, which the Christians don't seem to. I don't know. I thought there was a warning against that. I don't know. It seems to be in one of the books there. I don't know. This year at the Democratic convention, I'm told that there is an 8-foot tall birth control device that they are calling Frida Womb. That's the name of it. It's that triangular type thing, big, and you can take pictures with it. It's yeah. So I love the circus that is the convention.
Well, I remember in Barack Obama's convention, they had gigantic Greek pillars, which didn't hold up anything. I kind of got mocked for that.
Just look good.
Yeah. All right. And on to my next guest. I've spent the lion's share of my life burdened by what has been, with little vision for what could be. Here to sway me toward imagining what can be, unburdened by what has been, is Despot of Antrim. Good morning.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I was actually going to say how important it is, first of all, not only to be unburdened by what has been, but also the significance of time. You see, time is significant, and it has significance because of the significance of time. And if we can be unburdened by what has been, then we can begin to understand how significant it is to even conceive of the significance of time, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean that falls into what Obama once
Rings of Power Season 2.
Yeah. Well, as Barack Obama said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. So
yeah. The best, just touching on what you were saying to Greg, the best convention that I have seen from the States is the Socialists of America convention from a couple of years ago. It was awesome. And speaking of props, I heard that they had an 8-foot tall price control prop that destroyed the life of anyone that went anywhere near it.
Yeah, because price controls have always
charged tickets to get into their convention.
Here is a brilliant quote from, I don't know who it was. It might have been, it was a Vietnamese general. I forget which one. But he went through the Vietnamese War, and he was, a very celebrated general. And he said the Americans could not destroy Ho Chi Minh City, but the Americans could not destroy Hanoi, but price controls did. Rent controls did. He said the Americans couldn't destroy Hanoi, but rent control did. Because I hear the Democrats are flirting with the idea.
Yeah, it's just a silly gimmick. But yeah.
They are, I think, price controls, and I think they also are still going with universal basic income. I think that's something that they're floating as well.
That was done. I mean, that was done during COVID, and it was an absolute disaster. But let's not get too much into that.
Yeah. Well, today's featured guest has long resided in a sleepy village in the English Midlands, full of accomplished people and drawn-out semi-retirement, choirmasters, librettists, dramaturges, and concert pianists turned tutors. And where, nestled by a brook and a priory church with an original Norman nave from the 1400s and a drafty interior with heady scents of chrysanthemums and wood polish, He muddles about in a Victorian house of dark oaken-stained glass, overlooking a common, often host to village fetes, and from where, in a conservatory full of Raphaelite prints and portraits of his forebears, presided over by a ticking carriage clock, he spends his days reading improving volumes with foxed and mottled pages, light struck across the sheen of the table, and making gleaming ascensions over break-front bookcases. Actually, he probably doesn't live in a place like that at all, but I like to imagine that he does. Here's Random Film Talk.
God damn it. Yeah, hello, guys. Thanks for having me back, as always. And yeah, I don't know if I want to dispel that carefully constructed illusion, because I don't really live in a place like that.
Shame.
I can unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunate for me, but I can unfortunately count the number of books that I own on one hand.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes, and I do dust. They're not dusty old tomes. My current outfit might suggest that they are, but yeah.
Well, is there any, in the converse, is there any sort of like billowing dark industrial smoke from any riots coming your way? Not
near me, but I mean, if they are, I'll have to get in the attic and look through the old telescope and see what I can see.
We'll talk about this later, but just to give us a little preview, I think everyone outside the UK was really struck and trying to sort of get their head around just how eruptive and how much of a spasm of violence and disruption there was when it suddenly just happened. It was very strange.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing that I usually pay a huge amount of attention to, but it's also the kind of thing that it's difficult to not pay attention to at the moment.
Yeah.
Because this kind of thing happening on this scale I have not remembered this. I can't remember this happening any time in my lifetime where it's actually become this widespread, and where you have more than one, because like a riot is a riot, but having counter riots and all the rest of it, and people spreading misinformation on both sides online, and then this happening so soon after we've just got a new government in place, it's not good. I have no idea. I mean, I'm expecting that things are going to get worse, but I'm a little bit pessimistic about that. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, I was struck just by how much vitriol was thrown at Keir Starmer. I mean, hasn't the guy only been there for 5 minutes?
I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was just before I was last on, so maybe a month and a bit ago, something like that. And I mean, I think part of the reason why people are going to be reflexive, I think that he has done things wrong in a lot of cases, but at the same time, I also think that people are quite inclined to, throw shit at him for things that aren't necessarily his fault. And the reason for that is because a huge percentage of the country didn't actually vote this time, quite, understandably. And he ended up winning with less votes than Jeremy Corbyn got when he lost the last time.
Right. Yeah.
And I something like 20, I think it's in the high 20s% of the electorate actually voted for him.
I think it was got to like 30. It was like a third, I think, 33 something.
It wasn't. It was 20%. 20% of the British electorate voted for Keir Starmer. He has the smallest mandate of any British prime minister in like 100, 200 years.
Yeah. So it's I worry about you Brits sometimes, Random. Just cast my eye over there, and it doesn't looks a little bleak, to be honest.
What I will say is that because I have seen things on like Twitter and on BBC News and whatever it might be, which makes it look like things are a lot worse than it perhaps actually is. But then at the same time, maybe I'm lucky that I don't live anywhere near that.
Yeah, I guess.
So yeah, but again, it seems to be happening in more places than it usually might. But for the moment, it's not literally hell on earth. Let's put it that way.
Right. It doesn't. It looks
at least.
Looks a little like Children of Men. Do you know the film Children of Men? It looks a little like that sometimes. It's worrying.
I mean, there are parts of the UK that look like Children of Men anyway. So
yeah, right. I guess so. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on with the news here, because it seems like the power of one, the power of two. Nope, it's just the power of one. We're only getting one season. Yeah. So the Acolyte's been cancelled. So ding dong, The Witch is dead. The Witch is dead. No season 2 for Disney. So forever, that creepy CGI guy in the cave is just going to be that 3 seconds of creepy CGI guy in a cave, and that's just going to be it forever.
good.
Oh, he'll get a spin-off. He'll get a spin-off. You know he'll get a spin-off.
I don't know.
They're going to do Plagueis eventually. They're going to do Plagueis dirty the way they did Thrawn dirty.
I think they'll do him eventually, but I think that Leslie Headland is probably done at Disney for quite some time. Like I don't see her being the one to do it. Yeah, I think she's out.
Is a part of you guys just a little slightly bittersweet that, you know, actually in some ways, just for our own malevolent, devious enjoyment, it could be nice to have a season 2? So
I'm not. I don't think anyone would have cared about a season 2. I think this would have been another kind of Velma situation, whereby season 1 was huge online and everybody just couldn't get enough of the hate, and it was just a really good sort of hate feast. And but then when season 2 came, nobody gave a shit. Same thing would have happened with the Acolyte. Acolyte fatigue already has hit hard, so I'm quite happy for it. They've come out and gone, and I like to see it. I do like to see Disney eat this L, because I was surprised. Disney don't usually do this. Netflix do, and what's the name of that stream? Greg, what's the name of Warner's streaming service? I keep forgetting.
It's HBO Max.
I don't understand this recurring joke you guys have. I'm out of the loop on this.
They basically they announced their cancellations publicly. Netflix in particular, they'll often cancel stuff. They've even canceled stuff before the end of the season, but Disney don't. They will generally wait until a quiet time like January to sort of quietly insinuate. So I think and look, I'm going to share. Can somebody else pick this up when I try to find this image I want to share, just to impress upon the viewers how calamitous a failure this was?
All right. Well, yeah, you're right, because normally they'll just let things slowly and quietly die in a corner rather than, you know, declaring that they're going to cancel something, and especially if it's a Star Wars series.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that. Why did they want to be so emphatic about it?
And I'm shocked that they did it so soon afterward.
Yeah,
I think that's
right.
also kind of telling that they didn't try to wait until, you know, there is some sort of turmoil or strike or whatever, and sort of keep it in their back pocket. Like, I think a lot of the writer strike was what we saw, that where a lot of these studios clearly had things they wanted to get rid of. And then the strike happened, and there was a lot of jumble, and they were like, and we're removing Willow from the service entirely because of the strike. And like, what? Because of the strike? How does that make any sense? Like, just shut up. It's off the service now. That's all that matters. And I'm surprised that they didn't wait for something like that, or just, you know, Thanksgiving week or something, when, you know, there's a lot going on. People aren't online very much. Thanksgiving Day, just said, and we're also not doing season 2 of the Acolyte, by the way, you know, and just let it fizzle out. And so that is also very interesting that, yeah, just a few weeks after that, they just went, yeah, it was such a failure. We're already making the call for it to not happen.
Yeah. So many people on Twitter saying, you know, I love the eruptions of angst, you know, you racists and misogynists and homophobes. I'm glad you're happy that you got what you wanted. You know, we just wanted this corner of the world for ourselves and we don't have it. Yeah, they don't seem to have much concept of what a market is.
The best bit of copium I saw, sorry, Random, just this was such a beautiful bit of copium that I had to share it. Basically, when I went on to briefly onto Pronoun Twitter to see how they were reacting to the Acolyte's cancellation, and the best one was some guy who said, actually, the season wasn't cancelled because it was only greenlit for one season, so it just wasn't renewed, not cancelled.
It was mutual. She didn't break up with me. We decided collectively that we shouldn't see each other anymore. So that's really what happened, bro.
In fact, we were never really seeing each other. Right? It was never serious. Like, we agreed that we were just gonna, you know, give it a shot, and we'd do it for like 4 or 5 months. So we didn't break up. We just didn't renew the relationship.
Imagine how bad things would have to get if like a show was whipped off the screens halfway through a season. That'd be amazing. You know, if they actually had episodes done, but they just didn't screen them, that'd be amazing.
I'm pretty shocked that they didn't already have like a season 2 in the works. You know, a lot of these shows now, they're already kind of like, I remember when Wheel of Time came out, season 1 came out, and it was very poorly received. And it was kind of a sure thing that season 2 was going to suck, because as the show, like, I think as the final episode is premiering, news came out that they were on scene, on set, beginning filming. So there was no time to receive criticism, make changes, you know, so they were already kind of going. And I think Rings of Power was in the same boat. Like, I'm pretty sure they either shot both seasons back to back or very close to each other. So there wasn't time to correct things. I'm pretty surprised that this didn't already have 2 seasons sort of built in, especially since this is just like every other new show where season 1 is pretty much just an ad for season 2 and nothing happens.
I mean, one potential difference between the two is that you've got, in the case of Star Wars, they have already bought the IP and they're going to maybe scattershot and deal with, throw out a whole bunch of ideas and see what sticks. And if they do well enough, they might make another one. Whereas I guess in the case of something like Rings of Power or Wheel of Time, it very much is going to be a case of sunk cost fallacy. They're going to have to make, a whole bunch of seasons to make their money back. But as for why they canceled the Acolyte this early on, I don't, maybe their share prices were too low and they thought that canceling something that was that bad might improve them. I don't know.
Right. I'll share that photo I've put in there, Echo. And
I can't see it. I think you've, oh, there it is.
Just put it in just there.
Okay.
So this is just to emphasize what a shocking failure this was in terms of ratings, because a lot of viewers might be thinking, or listeners might be thinking, wow, well, maybe they just canceled it because it was such a bad show and the audience didn't like it. No, this thing fucking cratered. So compare total minutes watched for first 12 weeks of recent Star Wars shows. So we have The Mandalorian season 3 in pink, The Book of Boba Fett in blue, Obi-Wan Kenobi in green, Andor in yellow, and Ahsoka in season 1. Now, you might remember that Andor, despite being a really good show, was a flop, and it got roughly triple the number of views of The Acolyte. If you're just listening, maybe look at the screen now, because this graph will impress upon you The Acolyte down there in gray, just what a massive failure this was. It got, I think, 19% the viewership of Mando season 3. Nobody watched this.
Yeah.
It was a massive flop.
It cost like $200 million or something, right? 180, something like that.
Yeah, 20 million per episode, was it, or something like that? Crazy.
I honestly think that would be lower if the buzz around episode 3 hadn't been what it was. I think that actually got it as high as it is, as crazy as that is, because I think there was a lot of morbid curiosity because all of the previewers got the first 4 episodes, and like Film Threat was like episode 3 is going to just destroy Star Wars. And I don't really agree with that assessment. I think he kind of overblew that a little bit, but I think it sort of got this idea rolling that next week is going to be the worst thing you've ever seen. It was bad. I don't think it was on that level, but I think after episode 3, everybody was like, oh, okay, well, if that's the most exciting thing, I don't care anymore. Like, nothing is holding my attention.
Is non-Matt right here? Is this basically the order of release?
The order of release was Boba Fett, then Obi-Wan Kenobi, then Andor, then Mando season 3, then Ahsoka, and then The Acolyte. So this is not in order of release. It's just in terms of the viewership.
Yeah, and like Andor there was a lot of angst among the studio and commentators that it was kind of like an anchor dragging down, Star Wars Disney Plus. So if you put that in context of
actually, I heard yesterday that The Acolyte was the lowest rated Disney Plus series of all time. Live action we're talking here. Jesus, was it lower than Echo? My God.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody watched Echo, so there just probably weren't that many reviews.
I don't know what Echo is, so I'm going to just guess that did worse than the Acolyte. But
the bane of my existence for about 2 or 3 months. So every YouTube streamer was saying, "Oh, Echo sucks," and can you believe you've seen Echo? It was the worst thing.
Anyway, it was by far the lowest rated thing that Lucasfilm have ever done.
I just checked out of curiosity. This isn't necessarily entirely representative, but it does paint a little bit of a picture. So the number of ratings on each episode of The Acolyte on IMDb, you've got, this is in thousands, 26, 23, 25, 17, 17, 12, 12, 11. So it's just downhill all the way.
Yeah. I mean, you can see the obvious trend there is that people are just losing interest. The fan base is checking out in larger and larger numbers, and fewer and people are showing up. It's a dead franchise. It's a dead brand.
Yeah. Well, and it's not going to get better in December.
It's going to be rejuvenated by a kids show, which has got kind of a blue Mr. Snuffleupagus. Yeah. That's the heady state of Star Wars. But the hits keep coming because more good news. Phoebe Waller-Bridge Tomb Raider series now in doubt.
Oh, nice.
So that's good. Yeah.
Was she going to be playing Lara Croft or writing?
No, thank God, no.
She was the
Imagine-
showrunner.
I like how I had to ask that.
You're right, because the sheer fact that it is plausible in today's culture, that's probably a terrible indication. But can you imagine Phoebe Waller-Bridge in like tight canvas shorts? That's a horrific.
She can't. Phoebe Waller-Bridge cannot write action, and she can't do action, and she can't showrun action. She can do quirky little twee dialogue scenes, just about, and that's it. That's what she can do.
Yeah.
But Amazon paid her $60 million for nothing, by the way. Amazon 6 years ago, I think they hired her in 2019 on a $60 million contract. And since then, she has done a grand total of 0 projects for them. This would have been her first project, and it's already in doubt. And thank God, Amazon just saved themselves a hell of a lot of money if they are going to shitcan this.
Yeah.
No,
and
she can do action. Her being in CGI'd tuk-tuks in a horrible visual palette of orange and brown and yellow with Harrison Ford is a tour de force. So what are you talking about?
Well, it's just that scene was funny because she tried to write her normal dialogue, which I am told is pretty good. She did Killing Eve, right? And then also did Fleabag. Are those the two that she's really famous for?
Yeah,
and
I don't know about
I've
Killing
heard
Eve.
people like them. They like, the black humor, the very sardonic kind of tone about it. And that has its place, and that's perfectly fine. But you can tell that she tried to translate that to an action scene. And when you're shouting out, self-referential humor, sarcasm and stuff during a chase, it is so tonally clashing that it was stupid. And I think she would never be able to do this video game with that kind of tone that she has.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, a few flashes of good news there of nature healing. All right, let's do this. So, Despot, you've seen this.
Yes, I have.
I said this was my worst film of the year. And then I thought about it more and I said, was I being too harsh? But then no, I stand by it. I think because you got Borderlands and you've got the Marvels and you've got Rebel Moon and all that stuff, but that's kind of goofy and you don't really expect it. Whereas this had further to fall because those two first films have a bit of class and distinction to them. And this thing is trying to be a kind of slightly prestige, serious kind of horror film that might, stand amongst those two great ones. So it had much further to fall. And I thought it was overwrought. The pacing and structure was appalling. I gave it provisional goodwill for about 20 minutes, where I actually liked a lot of the stuff that was going on. And then I suddenly didn't like it because it just turned into very thin gruel. And even the first 20 minutes, you got horrible bits and pieces where Kaylee Spaney, is that the name? I keep forgetting her name, the actress.
I don't know. In fact, I couldn't remember the name because when I was mentally digesting this, one of my thoughts was I cannot remember the name of a single character in this movie.
Yeah, well, I went further than that, and I was trying to remember
except
back to
Ash, and don't even. We'll get on to Ash. Jesus Christ, we'll get on to Ash. But I was thinking about
RoboCuck. I call him RoboCuck.
RoboCuck. I was thinking about this because I've seen a lot of, and I hate this defense, and I've seen it before, the appeal to mediocrity, whereby a movie comes out and a lot of people want it to be good, and it turns out to be pretty bad, if not awful. And a lot of people online are saying things like, oh, it's not that bad. It's okay. It's not as bad as X and X. They were worse. And it's this appeal to mediocrity. And I've seen it with this movie. I've seen it with Alien Romulus, but I was thinking about this. In what respect is this mediocre? It isn't. It's crap at everything. I mean, let's just go through it. The characters are awful. The characters are templates. They're box tickers. We're gonna have the bald Asian kind of trans lesbian type girl. She has no personality. Right? The studio just had that on a little whiteboard in the writer's room. We want this character in there. Okay, so we got her. We want the vaguely racist kind of Cockney type white guys, and they're in there, and they have no personality. And we're gonna have the absolute just bowl of air main character. She's Ray, right? It's like a Ray. It's a Ray character in that there is no character. Okay. And I mean, she's not a Mary Sue, but she has no character. She has no personality. The only thing with any personality is the android, which wasn't too bad, although it was a bit overdone. So the characters are all crap. There's not a single character I liked in this. Ash they rehashed, obviously, from Alien. I actually think this movie is kind of it's basically a remake of Alien in many respects when you look at its dramatic beats and its structure and its second, third act, which they did wrong, by the way. But they're basically trying to copy the dramatic beats, the structure of Alien. Its cinematography was crap. People have talked about, oh, this looked good. The cinematography didn't look good. One of the reasons that Alien and Aliens look so beautiful, Alien in particular, is that it has very high levels of contrast. So it is very dark, but there's also this really glimmery, shining effect coming off the corridors and the metal on the ships. So that's reflective of the Alien. The Alien's this black, shiny creature. It's very dark, but it has these silvery, shiny teeth because of the high contrast element and the highlights. Really nice cinematography. That wasn't in here. Everything's dark and murky. The aliens are too dark. The corridors are too dark. You don't get that glimmery shininess, which is supposed to be reflective of the alien's teeth and things like that. You don't get that metallic glint, which is, again, a psychological foreshadowing of the alien. It's poorly directed. Look at the scene, that scene that you're seeing in the poster there, where the face sucker grabs the Asian girl's face. The scene where they're all coming out of the fridge is absolutely hideous. It's red. The contrast is turned down. There's no highlights. It's a disgustingly ugly scene from a cinematographic perspective. The dialogue's dreadful. I mean, the dialogue, they take these lines like, I think they plagiarized, I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies. That was plagiarized 3 times or something.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Then they also plagiarized Get Away From Her, you bitch. And I can't even describe how bad that was. You just have to see it for yourself. It was so... I actually cringed in the cinema. It was so out of place. It was just awful. And there were other lines that they plagiarized. And the pacing is terrible. For example... And by the way, spoilers, because and not even spoilers, you cannot spoil a rotten egg, okay? You can't. At the end, when they do the kind of baby alien hybrid monster, this thing goes from a baby to a giant monster in the space of literally about 3 minutes. Everything happens way too fast.
It's bananas.
They can't do that in 3 minutes. And then the girl goes from getting the face hugger on her face to actually being chest bursted in, what? 5 minutes, something like that.
Ridiculous.
Whereas in the original Alien, it was like took 19 hours or 20 hours in world or something. And then other thing was, go ahead, Random.
I was going to say I watched Alien versus Predator quite recently. Don't ask why, and that is something that drove me nuts about that movie. Is you literally have face hug to chest burst is what 5 to 10 minutes. It's like, did you see the film that you're supposed to be, fan servicing? It's the whole point of it. So.
And I mean, the other thing I'll say, I'll let you rant for a bit, Echo, because I know I'm kind of monopolizing this. But the last thing I want to talk about is the chest burst scene. What did you think of the first chest burst in Romulus?
Is that the girl in the little spaceship who goes back with
the Asian girl goes into the cockpit, and then she sort of collapses, and then she goes, "Don't let me die," and then it bursts out of her chest.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's the like the setup foreshadowing thing where she's got a device that she can like pass over her limbs and go, wow, that's cool, I can see through myself, which has no connection or relevance to anything. And then, well, we get that paid off literally 2 minutes later when she uses the device to check for herself, which is so hackneyed and contrived. And then she starts to convulse, and then like a creature comes through, which, like you say, has somehow evolved and grown and become a threshing monster inside her within the space of 2 minutes, so which is bizarre. And yeah, right, it's just in this, it might have been a cost-cutting thing because it's a relatively $80 million, relatively small budget, so maybe they're just trying to conceal stuff and make things deliberately dim and gloomy, but it was too much with the thick red heavy lighting and stuff. So yeah, and then the thing bursts from her and whatever.
If you want, people have been saying, for example, that this is the back to basics horror of Alien, and it really isn't. It's not gory enough. It doesn't have the blood, the gore, or the terror of Alien. Look at the chest burst scene in Alien. What makes it so iconic and so brutal? The lighting. He's underneath like a big bright light that's shining down on the dinner table or lunch table or just the eating area. So it's really well lit. You can see everything. And also John Hurt's acting. It's incredible. Like he actually looks like a man who is having a creature burst out of him. He's not looking around saying, "What's happening to me? Don't let me die." Like he doesn't have time. He can't talk. There's a creature bursting out of him, whereas this girl's talking. The lighting is too dark. And there's no blood. There's actually no blood during the chest. It's a terrible chest burst. You're never going to get a chest burst as good as the original Alien, but this was just poor. Low lighting, no blood. The girl's talking before she dies. It's just bad. And the acting's not very good. She's not physical enough. She's not convulsing enough. It's just bad. It's a bad chest burst scene, and it's indicative of how badly directed this movie is. So for all those chumps online who are saying, oh no, actually it's not a bad movie, it's mid, fuck your appeal to mediocrity. This movie's terrible.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I was thinking back to Prometheus and what's the other one?
Covenant.
And then, so in the first one, there's someone whose last name is Shaw and a robot called David. That's what I remember from about the 20 characters in that film. I don't remember a single character's name in the other one. Apart from there was Walter. That's it. And then in this one, there's a character named Rain and a guy called Andy. And that's it. So out of those 3 films where you've got perhaps 3 dozen characters, I can sort of scrape together 2 or 3 names across all of them. And so if everyone was complaining about the same trope and problem in those first 2 films of a crew of nobodies who are underdeveloped in terms of characters, who you don't feel any pathos for or sympathy for or aren't invested in any way because you don't know who they are, and your constant immersion in the film is disrupted because whenever you see them, you have to devote time to reorientating yourself to who is that person again and how do they relate to these people and why should I care, which takes you out of the film. And so you don't care about their situation if they're going to get stalked or killed. So to do that, even though you've seen that as a major flaw in those 2 previous films, to do it again and then do it with the Gen Z crew was abysmal. I don't know why the female characters have to be, on balance, stauncher and more stoic than the male characters. I don't know why these male characters have to be...
That was so annoying. They're so...
Why do the male characters...
What's happening? Oh my God, man. It's like,
why do these male characters have to be so high-strung?
They're such a pack of emotionally incontinent women.
Yes.
Like, that's the insult that we use. Like, when I was a wee boy, we would say, would you stop that, you woman? Yeah. Right? That's what I would have said to these guys. Stop being so bloody histrionic. Calm down.
I would have said, stop being a girl's blouse. That's what I would have said.
Exactly. But they're so emotional. And it's just that Hollywood trope of writing men too emotionally. It's like women writing men kind of thing, even though Fede Alvarez wrote this and he's allegedly a man. But I
don't understand because 99% of men don't comport themselves in any way like that. It's
this
strange.
Emotionally uncanny valley aspect of the writing. You just look at it and you think, what is going on here? And then meanwhile, the girls who would be running around in histrionics looking to the men to save them. Instead, they're kind of girl bossing it and leading the situation. It's just, it's awful. It's so predictable and trite and wrong.
Yeah, and also the sense that their inter-male banter was so pat.
Crap, wasn't it?
It's just painful.
It was awful, and it was boring to listen to, and it was very forgettable. You compare that to look at Aliens, right? And one of the characters, I forget his name, but who's the badass chick? Is it Sanchez?
No, that's Vasquez. Yeah,
Vasquez. So so he turns around to Vasquez and like the ginger guy, and he says some comment, and then Vasquez slaps him, and he just smiles back at her.
Yeah.
Do you know what scene I'm referring to?
Yeah.
Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
He said, no, somebody says, have you ever been mistaken for a man? And she says, no, have you? That's a good comeback. And then the ginger guy comes over and says, God damn, Vasquez, you're just too badass. And then she slaps him and he smiles. That's really good. That makes you like those characters. Right?
Crazy thing is that actress is actually a Northern Ireland woman who was playing.
Is that right?
She's playing a Latina. She's also known as a role for the earnest and soothing mother in Titanic who talks to the little baby Irish kids in 3rd class and says, it's going to be okay.
That's a great piece of trivia.
Yeah.
James Cameron likes, I can't remember what her name is, the actress, but she's also in Terminator 2. She's John Connor's adoptive mother.
Oh, that's her as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, who gets... who the T-1000 turns into her and kills the adoptive father. But yeah, same actress. I just can't remember her name.
Yeah, that's 3 very different roles.
We love those characters from Aliens. And then even in Alien, the black guy, like he talks about the food. And then John Hurt starts choking and he says, "Hey, come on, man, the food's not that bad." Like, that's a great throwaway line. Like, stuff like that makes you care about these characters. There's none of that. There's none of that in Romulus. You don't give the vaguest shit about anyone on screen. Maybe you're rooting for the alien, but that's about it.
I mean, with the gestation period with John Hurt in the first one, it's like a longer, more languid effect of in a film where you get the fake out where you think there's going to be a jump scare and then it's not. So then you kind of relax and then they do the jump scare. Yeah, so John Hurt's got the alien on his face and then it comes off. So there's actually a moment of where in this very wrought, tense drama, you actually get to relax for a couple of minutes, and then that's when they hit you with the chest burster.
Like I said, it was during the eating scene where it's all nicely well lit and you can see everything, and it doesn't feel like a horror scene, which creates this brutal dichotomy, this kind of emotional and visual dichotomy. They got that wrong in Romulus. They just did it in the dark in a cockpit, and it looks terrible.
You're right. It's the fact that it's just bland, almost like domesticity of people sitting around in a very conventional situation where it goes wrong, that kind of hits you. But there's with the lead actress, this I don't understand this bizarre emotional economy where she's just been told that she's going to spend the next 7 years stuck on this planet, which would be, you would be overwrought and crying and you'd be emotionally demonstrative, and she just is so weirdly phlegmatic about it all and just kind of understated and strange.
Yeah, the world building was too weak there. The world building was very weak because if you really do have a mining colony and you're arbitrarily forcing extra contracts, like extended contract periods onto your workers, whereby they're going to have to remain on this shithole mining colony for another 5 or 6 or 7 years, you're going to create a situation whereby you'll end up with a revolt. The only way you can enforce that is through tyranny. You need a tyrannical police force. Funny enough, you were talking about the UK riots. But basically, you need that. The only way you can enforce misery on a population is, and to make them eat that amount of shit, is through tyranny. You need to be able to control them. But we don't see that. Like, where is the corporation's tyrannical police force to enforce their tyranny?
Yeah, you want it to be like a Total Recall kind of situation.
Because if you just start telling thousands of miners or even hundreds of miners, you're going nowhere. You're here for another 5 years. They're gonna burn the place down, man.
Yeah, this emotional economy is very strange because she's like that, and then there's a scene where, like, literally one of the crew members is writhing around with this parasite, gigantic creature on her face, and it was just kind of standing around, milling around in the background, discussing possible options and stuff.
The stupidity of the characters as well. When the Asian girl gets the face hugger, right, which is obviously the inciting incident that allows the alien to get out and become the xenomorph. Well, here's an Ash, the Ash, or the, I don't even know what you would call it, the Ash abomination, the CGI abomination that is allegedly Ash, tells them this girl has been infected. He literally just tells them, as the face hugger is on her face, she is being infected with a parasite. And even if you get it off her face, there's a good chance that it's already infected her. So here's an idea. How about you take this girl, you put her in isolation, and you wait. Right? You're on a space station. You've got like 30 hours before it hits the asteroid belt. There's plenty of time. Put her in isolation and wait a day. And see if it bursts out of her chest. And if it does, hey, well, the alien's not going to get out of there. Or
that sucks.
Put her in isolation. Go do your thing. Get all the fuel that you need. And then say, okay, Asian girl, well, Asian lesbian trans thing or whatever you are. Well, we're going to wait in the spaceship. And if the thing doesn't burst out of your chest, within 30 hours, we'll bring you back in. There you go. Simple. And there's other things as well that they could have done that the characters are just too stupid to think of, and it's very frustrating, and it just makes you dislike them.
Yeah, there was a huge amount of variety. Sometimes characters would walk down grungy, low-lit corridors, and then sometimes they would sprint down grungy, low-lit corridors, and sometimes they would pace very quietly down grungy lit corridors, and sometimes they would ascend ladders up grungy lit shafts, and sometimes they would descend ladders down grungy, low-lit shafts, and sometimes there would be access to doors, and then sometimes that access to doors would be denied. And so there was a huge amount of variety. And in between that, there seemed to be a film happening.
I have a prediction. Basically, you're going to see an end to the appeal to mediocrity. You're going to see an end of people kind of trying to give this movie a pass. Before the year's out, this will be widely regarded as an awful movie.
I think so. Yeah. What else did I hate about it? I hated. I have this weird dissociative sense that people just at some intrinsic level don't know how to structure films anymore. Like somehow people have just lost that knack. It's just a series of episodes with so little connective tissue, and then going to this set piece.
Yeah,
with,
I know what
with
you
set
mean.
Set pieces that are just. Why are you up in an elevator shaft for an action sequence that has no intrinsic value really to the film for about 20 minutes? And then you have this bizarre acceleration of the character development, where she goes from being this quiet little mousy kind of ingenue who watches on, and then in the space of 10 minutes, she's turned into a like god tier final boss who's like shooting aliens, and she's super awesome, and she's flushing this weird creature out the airlock. So it's absurd, the lack of pacing, the lack of structure, the lack of any kind of parabola of momentum in these things. And I see, if I watch the Indiana Jones film or the Marvels, it just feels like people have lost that intrinsic knack. It's very strange.
Yeah, they're looking for the big set pieces, but they don't set them up properly. That's one of the reasons. And a good example of that in Alien Romulus is the scene where she is in the corridor with the android and she shoots all the xenomorphs as they're floating toward her in zero G.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they all come from?
Yeah, good question.
Where the hell did they come from? Okay, because I saw the one xenomorph. There was no mother, there was no queen laying the eggs. I mean, in Aliens, we saw where all those other extra xenomorphs came from. We saw the eggs, we saw the nest, we saw the aliens capturing victims and using the victims as nutrition for the young. It was built up, and then you get the scene where there's lots of aliens attacking them in the vents. But in this, it's out of nowhere. You just get this corridor full of xenomorphs, and it's like, where the hell did they come from?
Yeah, it's like we go from
bizarre.
Just pick a lane, either do an homage to the first film and stick to that aesthetic, or do the second film, but don't do the first film and then for the last third of the film do the second film.
It was ripping off Alien for like the first 2/3, and then it does the second third act. It rips that off from Alien, like beat for beat.
Beat for beat, yeah. Even the fucking sneakers that she's wearing going down a ladder just looked evocative of Ripley. Just like everything was evocative.
Yeah, it kind of interrupts that to shoehorn in the vent scene from Aliens, and then it tries to also do the Newt scene where she goes and she saves Newt from Aliens. It tries to do that, and then it throws in that horrible line, "Get away from her, you bitch." It's just it's drag. This is just fucking dross, man.
I mean, I liked Andy because it's an interesting concept of an android, a fresh take to have an android who's very tentative and diffident. I thought was quite a nice approach, and I liked the little sort of twitches and demurals of his face and expression was quite cool, and I like that. Yeah. I also like the sense that the idea that in a mining colony like that, your loneliness could be so acute that you would come to actually, conceptualize this decommissioned robot as a genuine companion. I thought there was a nice little bit of pathos in there. But even then, you could tell that Fede Alvarez was onto a good thing, and so just overdid it. We got too much of a good thing of that character, to the point where he became like a co-lead or even the lead at times, which is a pretty bad indictment of the other characters, that this android who should be an ancillary character becomes essentially a co-lead, and I thought that was pretty weak.
Yeah. The other major thing that's missing from this is a villain. You see, the xenomorph's not a villain. The xenomorph is a monster, and you've got with the xenomorph you have the overcoming the monster plot, but in order for that plot to really work well, you need a villain in there as well.
You need the Judas figure, don't you?
You need a kind of Judas figure, or you need the evil bureaucrat. Look, think Ghostbusters. Right. The ghosts in Ghostbusters aren't the bad guys. They're just kind of monsters. The bad guys are the bureaucrats, the government bureaucrats who are trying to shut down the Ghostbusters operation. They're the bad guys, right? And here you've got the monsters, but you don't have the bureaucrat or the Judas. In this, obviously, given the context, you'd probably need to go for a Judas. But they don't. Instead, they give us Ash. They try to rehash him and kind of make him the villain, and it just doesn't work.
I was literally just crawling up almost fetally into a ball in my seat watching those Ian Holmes scenes. That was unforgivable.
That must be the worst CGI of the year.
Yeah, that was unforgivable. His face was like a like he's having mini strokes, like a baby smeared in glycerine.
It was
from
horrific.
the depth's perspective was wrong.
It
The
was like
teeth were weird.
they were trying to make him simultaneously look real, but also make him look twitchy because he's been cut in
Yeah.
half. Oh
Yeah.
God, the result is just abominable.
That's an
Lads, wait,
abomination.
you've got to watch this movie, like Greg and Random. You've got to watch this. And when you do, pay particular attention to the CGI that they did on Ian Holmes, because my God, it's is it Echo, is it better? Is it as bad, or is it worse than Moff Tarkin?
Well, we'll get to that in a second, but it's they tried to make him look crafty, and it's the kind of craftiness of a little kid who's like quietly farted and knows that in a few seconds everyone's going to smell it.
I saw that in your video. I thought that was a brilliant line.
That's the analogy I had, but that was unforgivable. Ian Holm, you don't want someone who's like been taught at RADA, who's played incredibly subtle and brilliant roles and has a great range, and to just do this to them. It's appalling.
I hope his kids got a decent paycheck at least for using his image.
How did they do his voice? Do you know? Did they AI it, or
is it probably used AI? Yeah, would have used AI.
But the cadences were all wrong, and the texture of the voice was weird and off. Strange.
I mean, I guess the fact that he's a droid means that theoretically, same with the visuals, they could have maybe leaned into it a little bit more. It maybe leaves a little bit more room for lower fidelity, but from the sounds of it, he just looks like a cartoon person pasted into, an alien film.
And he's called Rook because Bishop, and then Rook, like it's a chess reference. Awesome.
Yeah, he's not actually Bishop. He's the same model that was on this ship that they find.
And then the last third was just a total ripoff of Alien Resurrection, where there's like an alien-human hybrid thing, and then there's like a stupid showdown. Really sucked out of the airlock.
That was
disintegrates. It was just ugh. The creature looked goofy. It had a dopey expression on its face. It was ugh.
Yeah, that was Ridley Scott wanting to really insert his alien-human hybrid ideas into, which is a stupid idea. Okay, the whole point of Alien is that it's an existential competition. It's survival of the fittest.
Yeah,
it's Darwinianism. Okay, the xenomorphs aren't interested, and nor should the franchise be interested in forming a hybrid between humans and xenomorphs. It should just be, this is survival of the fittest. This is one species trying to annihilate another species. There's no way you can bridge these two.
Yeah.
Right. And this idea of having these hybrids is just ridiculous and stupid. And I get the body horror aspect of it, because body horror is an important aspect of the alien concept, but that really comes from ideas of rape and interfering with someone sexually at a very deep and psychological level. That's those psychological horror elements. It's not the kind of hybrid body horror. That's just wrong. That's a different thing. That should be a different genre.
Yeah. There are a few things I liked. There's a scene where they're blasting off on their ship. Oh, one other thing I wanted to suggest, just in terms of pacing and how low the attention span is in the modern audience. Beat for beat, I did this in my video as well. Alvarez is so keen to get the things moving that we've introduced all the characters, we're on the ship, we're blasting off, we're heading towards a space station. And the equivalent runtime in Aliens, we're still way back with Ripley, who's like in her small apartment, and Gorman and Burke are talking to her while she's still recovering from her trauma. So that's the equivalent where this was in terms of like rushing through things and then having a terrible lull. But one cool scene where they're going off on the G-force when the ship is launching off and the guy lights a joint and then he's able to suck it up in 2 or 3 seconds. That was cool. I had like a little flicker of hope.
That wasn't bad. And I thought the scene where they're trying to creep past the face huggers wasn't bad either. Because they got into the sort of biology of the face huggers. Like, they don't have eyes. They detect movement and basically, the kind of Jurassic Park thing, like, don't move. They can't see if you don't move. That was pretty good. I thought that was a nice little touch. But other than that, I have very little good to say about the movie. There are a couple of interesting innovations, but they're not taken far enough. There's no villain, and it's wrong in most respects. Although I don't know if it's the worst movie of the year. I still think Rebel Moon Part 2 is probably worse. And Borderlands is just start to finish, just unmitigated god-awfulness.
Yeah, but I can let that slide over me. Whereas this I take umbrage at trying to get up to that level of those classic films, which have a distinction to them. And its lows were more egregious. They stabbed at a deeper level and struck me at a deeper register.
I
So
mean,
that's why
I
it's,
understand what you're saying. Like, Borderlands is treading on shit, whereas this is treading on sacred ground.
That's right. This was so like Borderlands is like a lake, which is a lake of shit and excrement. So like a cesspool basically, but only an inch deep. So if I'm in my boots splattering over the top of it, I'm not too worried. Whereas this was a narrower cesspool into which I fell. So that's what I'm saying.
Is
From a
this
distance,
the worst
it might have
Alien
looked like
film?
clean water.
Is this the worst Alien film?
Yeah, if we're including, the Covenant, Prometheus, the AVP films, everything, how would you guys rank it?
I would rank it as the worst due to plagiarism. I think that it
Yeah, I think
copies
so.
beat for beat too much of Alien. It copies set pieces from Aliens. The aspects of it that are original, I mean, are there any? It also includes little elements of Prometheus and the other one they did. I can't even remember the name of it. It includes like the black goo stuff. It has that in there.
Yeah,
So
no way.
it's kind of just a plagiaristic hodgepodge of about 4 of the movies with almost nothing in the way of originality.
Yeah.
It's
Alien-
disgustingly plagiaristic. I would say this is the worst, because even if
fair.
you say that something like Alien 3 is a piece of shit or Alien Resurrection, at least it had some original ideas. At least it was trying to do something different. This thing's bad and it doesn't have anything original or different. You've seen it all before.
Alien 3 had great actors in it. It had Charles Dance, for God's sake, and it had a whole bunch of great actors. This had nobody in it, which I guess was also a budgetary problem.
Alien Resurrection was the one with Winona Ryder, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that was campy. It had this kind of dumb 90s camp, and Winona Ryder was peak in it. So you can enjoy that.
Yeah. It's not, with Alien Resurrection, I feel like I don't hate it in the way that it sounds like you guys hate Romulus. And I think part of that is because one of the biggest problems with Alien Resurrection is that it is not really an alien film. It absolutely
some weird
feels like
90s French art piece thing.
Yes.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like it.
Yeah, we need to do like a review of that film just to sit and watch the whole thing and just because it would be interesting to revisit it because it is so out there.
It is, yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of scenes in it that are like genuinely really quite good. It's just that the whole product is not very good.
Yeah. It had one cool scene where Ripley goes into that room where there's the attempted and aborted versions of herself. I thought that was a really cool scene. Anyway, so that's Alien Romulus, my worst film of the year. Come at me, bros. And so that's where I stand. That's where I feel.
I'm serious, man. If you're watching this video and you honestly think this is a good movie, fair enough, or you think it's mediocre, just comment why, because you're wrong, and I want to explain this to you.
if any fucker tells me to just take a chill pill, like it's okay, just no. Anyway, CGI. So this is just expanding on this idea. It never works. It's always shit. Stop doing it. It's horrendous. So Despot, do you go Moff Tarkin or do you go Syrian?
Do you know what it is? They kind of had Moff Tarkin in the dark a little bit. It was bad, but oh man, it was bad, wasn't it?
He looked like a PlayStation character.
The thing is, it was
like a
so
FIFA
bad. It was so bad that it just looked like a video game cutscene. So it wasn't. It actually was so bad that it wasn't even Uncanny Valley. But the Ian Holmes CGI is a little bit better in terms of the rendering, which makes it worse because it is emotionally Uncanny Valley. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
So I would actually go with what they've done in Alien Romulus. I just think it's horrific.
Yeah. It's in the bomb. I don't know why this isn't a cultural scandal, what they've done to Ian Holm in this. Maybe just enough people haven't seen it yet. Moff Tarkin, Rand, do you remember like FIFA faces, like the FIFA soccer games where they'd suddenly glitch and the faces would all sort of warp and twist? That's kind of what this reminds me of.
I am not familiar with that, no.
But don't forget Christopher Reeve for his little flash in the Flash.
Oh yeah,
a little cameo there.
That was bad. I actually thought Nicolas Cage was maybe the worst one.
Yes.
I'm convinced that in the Flash, the CGI wasn't finished. I think they were in the early rendering stages and they just hadn't fully done it. But then David Zaslav came in and said, "Enough. We're not spending another penny on this. Just get it out there."
There's no way that that anybody said that's a final product. That's impossible. It was smooth and shiny. I mean, it looked like plastic. It was terrible.
Yeah, like it was made of rubber. And the thing, like, you have access to Nicolas Cage, right? You don't have access to Ian Holm or Christopher Reeve, but you have Nicolas Cage, surely. You have his permission to use his face. You could just get him in the studio for 5 minutes and you're good.
What I don't understand is why they didn't just use him. Like, since he was, if I remember right, he was like frozen, right? He was in a pose, and they did like a matrix camera around him, right? And he wasn't moving, was he?
Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
If he's moving, he's definitely not moving much, and he's not emoting.
So to me, it feels like they could have just shot him on a green screen and literally just put him in. Why recreate the man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember the scene now, but
posed a few times. Boom.
His physique is. I mean, Nicolas Cage does not have the physique of Superman, right? Because he's playing a Superman variant. Is that the idea? I honestly can't remember.
To make him look younger, I guess, because he is kind of an old guy now.
I guess. I don't know. The only one I think that I've seen recently that worked was the Indiana Jones. The first 20 minutes of Dial of Destiny was actually in itself. If you watch it, just turn it on for 20 minutes, and then when they get off the train, turn it off and don't watch any more of it, because that is a nice little story.
That was good. Yeah,
young Indy looked all right, but I think they did the Moff thing though. Like, he was shadowed, like he was on the train, and he's moving between the windows, and they hid it a little bit. But I thought overall he looked all right. It was just the weird separation of this young face, and then he would speak, and he's like, "Where is the thing that I'm looking for on this train?" Like, oh shit, you are 80. I forgot.
Yeah, there was the teeth and even the body as well. His shoulders weren't the shoulders. They were the shoulders of an old man. And man, see, if you want to do de-aging properly, it's just not even worth it. The amount you have to get the body de-aged, you have to build up the shoulders, you have to get the teeth right, the voice and the face. It's basically just animation. Like, just get a fucking lookalike, man. Just get a guy who kind of looks like Harrison Ford when he was 40 and toss him in there.
Well, so that's what they did.
No problem.
That's what they did with the example that I would give of this kind of CG recreation of an actor or actress being done really well is in Blade Runner 2049. And the film's been out for a long while now, so I guess it doesn't really matter if I spoil it, but the character Rachel appears briefly in it, but looking like she did in 1983 or whenever it is that Blade Runner came out. And I can't remember the name of the actress again, but she looks nothing like she did then. And they didn't use, I don't even think that she knew that it was happening until she saw it in the cinema. So they just used like a body double. But in terms of what you're actually seeing, because the body double was used for shadows and eye lines and stuff, but everything that you're seeing in that scene is completely CG. And I really like the film, but even setting that aside, the realism that you get from what that character actually looks like, I think it is the most realistic looking CG human person that we've seen, because that excludes things like Thanos and Gollum or whatever.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Like Sean Young, they brought her back, but you've got the right context to make that interesting. You've got interesting tensions and ironies about her as a replicant. And so that was, a really good use of that. But this, Grand Moff Tarkin, they made him more haggard and tired and sunken-eyed than he actually would be in A New Hope. And they sort of tried to get his kind of amused, disparaging, ironical looks into the middle distance when he would react to what someone was saying, almost there. But no, it just looked hideous. And it's going to date abysmally and quickly.
Yes. I've got to wonder, actually, I just want to throw this out there. Prosthetics, depending on which films we're talking about, you've got things like The Whale that came out fairly recently. There are some insane things that you can do with prosthetics. And like in the case of Tarkin, it's not his original voice. It wasn't AI. It was like a voice double, I believe. You got to wonder if that may eventually start making a comeback, using practical skin applications in order to, age up an actor, maybe his son, like someone who looks kind of like him already.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But this desire to just get him looking exactly like he did means, no two people are going to look the same, especially not one that is alive now versus one who died in 1980, whatever. This obsession with trying to get it to look identical means that you have to resort to a computer, which I think is why this all largely looks like garbage.
I think you could get a prosthetic mask that could actually do a more convincing job. I think if you could get it to articulate properly, I think you could get slightly closer. And if you combine that with lighting, anything better than what they did to poor Ian, where he's just he's typing in his little rattling runs into the keyboard and the computer thing. It's so I can't believe that actually got broadcast.
It would be so much cheaper as well, because like, how much did it cost Disney to make CG Tarkin?
For Indiana, I don't know what it cost CGI Tarkin, but Indiana Jones, because they had to release the tax statements in the UK to get their rebate, and I think they spent something like £28 million on the Indiana Jones de-aging. So it's brutally expensive.
Yeah.
Random, you're right. They're gonna have to go back to prosthetics and lookalikes. Maybe just forget about CGI, because it's, even if it's not 100%, it's a hell of a lot better than the alternative.
Yeah.
And it's like you say, it's 99% cheaper.
What's
You
crazy
can also-
is we thought CGI was going to be the future of filmmaking, and it was going to make it cheaper because you could avoid building these big sets and doing this makeup and this long and all this, and it was supposed to be the savior of film costs. And just like we think AI is going to be the savior of development cost and writing costs and all this other crap, and it turns out to just be so much more, because you end up having to rework it, and it's not good. And the audience, even if they don't know why they don't like it, something about it always just feels a little off. And that's for everything. When you're reading AI stuff, you just are like, man, this just feels, something about this isn't right. You see these CGI, even good CGI, you're just like, man, something feels not quite human about that. Those eyes don't look alive, and I don't know that it ever will, but it's god awfully expensive.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that for a second, because there was this idea that with AI generative video, that it's going to revolutionize film, and it really isn't. And I'll explain why. There was a far more revolutionary technology that brought filmmaking within reach of all the indie filmmakers. It's called a phone. Camera phones. The modern camera phones are vastly superior to the best movie cameras that you would have had 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't made it. It's allowed some indie makers to go and make cheap indie movies, but nobody cares. It hasn't revolutionized. I can't think of a single great indie movie I've seen that was made on a phone. Like, it doesn't matter if you have the technology or you're able to do it. You need to actually know how to frame a shot. And if you're using NVIDIA AI or something, you can't control the framing, and you certainly can't get it to be aesthetically coherent with the rest of the movie that you've made with filmed footage. So it's not going to revolutionize a damn thing, because it cannot instill talent in the filmmaker. It's just another tool that they don't know how to use.
Yeah.
I think they could have used Ian Holm very sparingly in this film, and it could have been fantastic. You only see him like through a communicator screen on a little ship or something, giving instructions, and he's deliberately obscured by low grainy footage and rippling lines and poor gradient on the screen, and you just see him. That would have been really cool, because then you could disguise all the deficiencies in the CGI, because you're deliberately putting it behind those layers, and it also would have been like creepy and malign, because we have that irony of knowing who he is, and they just see him as this figure on the screen. That could have been great. But instead, we get
uploaded himself into the ship, like as a piece of software,
or something like that, or just that he's somewhere else and he's like transmitting his messages and communicating. That would have been good.
The audience, you have to think of it from the perspective of a normie audience. If you're going to bring him back, they expect to see the fully fleshed out character. They're not going to be satisfied with being teased like that. It's going to make them angry, because then they're going to think, oh, we got cock teased with Ian Holmes, and they didn't do the final. It's like foreplay without penetration. You know what I mean?
Didn't get the money shot.
Yeah. But that film Oblivion, that Tom Cruise film, and there's there's deliberately like the evil alien species who communicate through to them through just sort of repurposing and recycling footage of are you an effective team? Like, that kind of technique would have been creepy and really cool to use Ian Holm. But instead we get the disembodied corpse of a skin suit AGI CGI fuck up. So fuck you, film. All right. Disney D23. All right.
And that's the final word.
Yeah. So we got some good quality from D23. First of all, why is it called D23? That's my first question.
I was confused about that myself.
Surely D24.
I thought it would just count up. I don't know. I don't know.
Did they not
Maybe
do
they
one
did
during
I
COVID?
think
I don't
they
know.
did. That's it. But honestly, man, if I were them, I would just go back to I don't care that this is the 23rd one. We're just gonna call it D24. Just bring it, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a crap fest, like like the Disney fan club who get to meet up and whoop and cheer at trailers and teaser trailers for trailers and little mini updates. And yeah, we kind of got the dregs of Disney, including this abomination. This is really going into a sad, difficult place. I don't know if you saw the dance sequence in the trailer. It is off the wall, man. It is really freaky looking.
I would have to stop it. Like I would need to record it and put it in my editor or something so I could go through frame by frame, because I think it's like 2.5 minutes long, and I think there might be, I don't know, 350 cuts in that. I don't really know what was going on, and so I don't know which part you're which half a second were you talking about that were all cobbled together, because it.
The scene in the room where a half Jewish, half Colombian Snow White is acting to a green screen with hideously rendered CGI monstrosities that are weightless, like they're in zero gravity, sort of frolicking about in a room, in a film which has almost no straight lines or angles anywhere, is in a kind of soft focus, gaudy aesthetic, with her singing with gay abandon, which must be just in a studio empty room, and then composited and layered with these hideous aberrations of nature over the top. So this is in a strange place.
I'm interested to see how she's going to act, because you bring up a good point that she was probably acting completely alone, and I'm interested to see how she'll act and if it will be believable. Like there are other people, or maybe there were like blue suit, green suit guys in there. But you guys mentioned something in Alien, not to rub salt in the wound. I know that you just put the stamp on it, but you guys mentioned when somebody was had a face hugger on, everybody else was standing around. That's something that I'm noticing more and more in movies and shows, is the people that aren't talking don't know what to do. And like, they don't know how to behave like it's an actual whole scene. They just know how to act when they're the ones talking. And it'll be funny to watch this one when the dwarves are supposed to be talking to her, to see how she reacts. Like, does she react like it's a real conversation, or does she react like I'm waiting for the CGI to happen right here, and then, oh, it's my turn to say a line, and then her face comes alive again?
Yeah, it's like in the Acolyte, you've got in the last episode, I think there's just people randomly standing around, like video characters, while there's a dynamic between two other characters. Why are you just standing there in the background, like waiting for your cue? And it gives me the sense that these people,
no idea what to do.
These people never went through drama school properly, where they have to learn how to occupy space and make themselves relevant, or how relative their presence is to the action on stage. Like the fundamentals of drama and occupying theater space is another dynamic that seems to have ebbed really weirdly. But
that's a directing problem too. I noticed that because I'm finishing up that video, but there was one scene I noticed going through the footage that Soul is talking to Jackie and Yord is in the background, and the camera is positioned so like he's at a desk of some kind, and he's just like moving his hands, but they don't appear to be doing, like, I don't know what the hell he's supposed to be doing there. And they were just like, look like you're doing something. And so he's just sort of wiggling his hands around like he's got tools in him or something. And now that I know what to look for, I see that crap all the time, everywhere now, that people just don't know what to do with their bodies. And then you're absolutely right. They just don't know how to act natural and fill the space. And I think that's also a directing issue, where these directors are not focused on not the primary action, but the periphery, and taking these extras and these side actors aside and saying, hey, you're just kind of standing there until it's your time to speak, and it looks real stupid, and you need to be better.
Yeah,
you need to do better, Senator.
What are your guys' favorite bugbears in film? I've got two. One is no one ever says goodbye on the phone in a film. I don't know why that's a thing. People say, all right, and then I'll just flick up the phone, and no one ever says goodbye. So that annoys the heck out of me. And what's the other thing that really annoys me?
I can't stand driving and talking. Like characters are driving, but they're also looking at each other and having long conversations. And I'm just thinking, man, would you look at the fucking road? You're gonna
it freaks me out. It does
Maybe
freak me out.
Is it an American thing, Greg? Do all Americans do that?
No. That's just that only happens when you're in a moving set piece. And
also, the other thing is in movies, it's not just that. It's not just that they're driving and talking and looking at each other. Where's the traffic? There's never any traffic. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, you're driving in LA at 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and the streets are just empty. They're just flying along. And then the bad guys show up and they're able to have a chase scene through the streets of LA, right? And do these mad, wide maneuvers. And it's like, where are all the thousands of cars and the hideous traffic jams? This is ridiculous. The MCU did this, I think, with Busan, which is the second biggest city in Seoul. And I spent a summer in Busan. I lived next to it for a year. And it is always jam-packed. Like, the cars never stop. The traffic, it does my head in.
If there was that scene in that latest Mission Impossible film where they were in that little yellow car, there would have been at least 100 dead pedestrians, at least. In that
the Fast X did it in Rome, where they had a car chase scene through. And I was like, what? Have you seen Rome? Like, do you know what the traffic is like?
Yeah. My other little annoying thing is when there's a meeting at a restaurant, two high-profile people have decided to meet at a restaurant, and then they have 1 minute of exchange of conversation, and then one of them gets up and leaves. Like, did you order the food? Why are you there? That always annoys me. Anyway, so we've got Snow White to look forward to in 2025. I like how Who's the Fairest of Them All has gone from being, the loveliest and the prettiest to being who is the most just, who is the most noble, who has the loveliest vision.
But that doesn't even make any sense, because if she's the evil queen, she would never have been the most just. The mirror would never have said, "You're the most just, my queen," because she's evil and she's narcissistic and she's vain. So she would never have.
You think she's going to be evil? You still think she's going to be evil in this?
one? You know what I'm getting at. Obviously
her
the
name...
trope.
Sorry, isn't her name literally the Evil Queen, or does she have another name? I'm trying to remember.
All they know how to do now is create and retcon villain backstories that go, oh, you thought they were evil? Well, it's just because you don't have the full picture. Actually, something tragic happened that turned them evil, and it wasn't their fault. Oh my God, I want to throw up with this shit.
They made two whole movies doing that with Maleficent, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
The way I see it, the Evil Queen's father was madly in love with her mother, and then her mother died giving birth to her, and her father was angry at her for never being as beautiful as her mother. And her father would shout at her and say things like, you might be my daughter, but you're not your mother's daughter. She was so much more beautiful than you. And so that drove her mad, and she got this mirror, and she would ask the mirror, and that's her tragic backstory. So it's okay that she does all this evil shit, because when a woman does it, that means that it is not illegal.
That's right. So if it's woman evil characters, they have to be reimagined as they've been societally conditioned or downtrodden, or their essential essence of goodness has been buried by the societal conditioning in some way. And so therefore they can have a redemption arc or be more understood. It could be Ursula, it could be in 101 Dalmatians, it could be in this. So it's always the same shit.
Looks like that's what's happening with Wicked. I never did see that play, and I know it's like a film version of the play. So I know that this isn't like a new story, but is that the story of Wicked now, that she was made to be a bad guy and then just decided, well, I'll play the part if that's what's
she went to witch or magical college, and she was like she was looked down as a freak because of her skin color, and so that's what caused her to turn evil. For me, am I right about this? This is my theory about why Snow White has endured through the centuries. What is its deep template as a kind of societal message? And for me, I've always seen the messages as to do with young fertility and the idea of protecting that for young women, because that's good for the community. So the idea of the poison apple is something to do with taking away of fertility, and the idea that you can be lured to a dark side of infertility and childlessness, like this evil ogreish old woman. So therefore, that's the peril. That's the deep template of this as a fairy tale. Do you think I'm on the right track with that?
Yeah, there's definitely an aspect of that. Because women are naturally biologically driven to be jealous of other women, because men are naturally driven toward polygamy and women towards monogamy. They want to find the best man and keep him. So they're constantly in competition with each other. It's one of the reasons they can get so catty and nasty and jealous. I mean, a good phrase is men insult each other and don't mean it. Women compliment each other and don't mean it.
That's good.
And it does get really into that. And this is not just, like manosphere, red pill cliche. Like it's deeply buried within the human psyche in terms of how we behave toward each other. And when you see a movie that runs with the idea of an aging beauty, a woman who is struggling to come to terms with the fact that she is not as young and beautiful as she used to be, trying to sort of take it out on the world by destroying this young, beautiful woman. There's something that is very deeply psychologically appealing about that, because it's so true. There's such deep truth to that in terms of the human condition. It gets at the human condition, but also in terms of the dwarves. The dwarves are very heroic. They want to take this young woman in and to help her, and that's a natural human instinct as well, and to do the right thing by her and to be men and support her. And then they go and chase the witch at the end, which is one of my favorite scenes in a movie. When they do that at the end, they go and get revenge. I love that. And then I don't know what that dickhead Peter Dinklage's problem was with this. It's like, what are you talking about? The dwarves are terrific characters. But I think he just wanted to, in some vague way, just parade his victim credentials around or something, because he's a white man, so he's not a victim. But he's like, oh, but I'm a dwarf, so I'm a victim, and we were oppressed. And Snow White. It was such a vague, nebulous pile of shite. I mean, just imagine how much. I don't want to get it off track, but yeah, Echo, you're definitely onto something.
But yeah, to expand on what you're saying, I think there could be the aspect too of the mother and daughter relationship, where the mother starts to grow older and finds perhaps her daughter's youth and attractiveness to young men vaguely threatening in a way at a deep psychological level. And so you've got to have the idea of the young woman who can break and find independence from that. So maybe there's a deep template there too.
That's possible. I think I've heard of that with a kind of a mother-daughter jealousy type thing. I'm interested to see where they go with this one, because what I noticed with the trailer is that there is no hint of any sort of plot. And
no.
I would think, oh, well, that's because it's Snow White. Why would you need to advertise what the plot is? It's freaking Snow White. But it feels nefarious because we already know that they changed it. Zegler was very proud of the fact that they changed it. It's not going to be just like Snow White. And they didn't attempt to hint at all as to what the actual struggle is going to be. If I'm remembering right, I don't even believe that. I don't think they really did say in the trailer that the evil queen doesn't like her for not being fair or whatever. I think they just have the evil queen and they have her, and they cut back and forth in a way that makes a TikTok video look slow and solemn. And I think that we're all just kind of putting that on the trailer because we know the story. So I'm interested to see if that actually is what happens, if they really even go with that storyline, or if they change every single thing about it, because she said they were going to. It's not going to be a regular love story. It's not going to have the prince stalking her and all this other dumb shit that she said. And I think that it feels nefarious that they just kind of cut it all together with the song and just, hey, it's a thing that you love, and then hoping they could have be lulled into it.
They couldn't even do the thing where it would have been more effective to have only at the end of the trailer do you hear perhaps like, who's the fairest of her all, and maybe just like a long slender hand and then an apple, just to sort of hint at the evil character would have been way cooler. But could you imagine, it would have been so cool, the interplay, if you'd had actual little people. Imagine the bloke from Willow, and then imagine like Peter Dinklage, and then imagine the black guy from Bad Santa. Imagine the cool comedic interplay between all those guys. It would have been awesome. But no, instead we get these horrific weightless.
Yeah, it's just such a shame because you never get to see that. You never get to see like 6 or 7 little people on screen. And it just would have been nice to see them together, and it would have been something different. And even though I despise these live action plagiarisms, hey, at least it would have gotten some little people actor a bit of money, a bit of cash, maybe a few $100,000 each for the role. And no, like it's so disgusting. It's the worst aspect of this whole travesty.
The whole aesthetic of like, the illustrations they have on the top of tin chocolate boxes, just that kind of look to it.
Yeah, it's like cheap, a sort of
gaudy.
Yeah, you're right. It's something you would see in the front of a Christmas chocolate box in Tesco.
Ugh. Oh my god, it's Star Wars.
Is this, hold on, I have a guess. I'm probably going to be wrong here, but is that, because I didn't see what this actually was, is that like the origin story of the blue elephant guy from Jabba's palace?
Max Rebo from the Rebo band.
Yeah. Is it him?
Yeah, that. It's like a little kind of blue Mr. Snuffleupagus kind of deal going on here.
Is this what the little creatures on the Khmer's sex beach, the little ball sack elephant trunk looking things on bird legs?
Yeah,
is this what they grow up to be?
Yeah, it's blurring together now, isn't it? So this looks horrific. This is in the trailer. Yeah.
Like just a screenshot. Like, what the hell is this RoboCop girl? Like, why would a child wear that? That's dumb.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe she doesn't have eyes, but that's a bit.
It's like Geordie LaForge.
There's a way we can spin Geordie LaForge, right? Yeah.
If you've got a child on screen, don't cover her eyes.
Yes,
they're endearing, you fucking morons.
Yeah, that's
Geordie LaFoe. Like,
also,
LaFoe, that's good. Nice. Perhaps? Yeah, that's good.
Most children can't act, and a large part of acting is your eyes. So as soon as you cover the eyes, it's going to be even harder to act.
But in the trailer, they actually show them like walking or cycling through what looks like a conventional neighborhood with a few space elements. So they're taking the idea of Goonies or that kind of Spielberg 80s aesthetic and tried to mush it in here with the idea that if you take Star Wars is brilliant and like Goonies Spielberg stuff is brilliant. So if we mush them together, obviously that's going to be brilliant as a hybrid.
Twice
more brilliant. So, but that's not what Star Wars is. It's not the aesthetic. Like, you don't want Star Wars is about pure escapism, even when you get to Tatooine in the beginning of A New Hope. Whereas this, it takes the idea of what is essentially recognizable as dull suburbia for a kid, but extant in the Star Wars universe, which is such a stupid concept. And then you got these kids, like a literal brat pack, who go on crazy kid space adventures with Max Rebo's son from the Max Rebo band. I had that playset, by the way, and the keys on Max Rebo's keyboard, they actually went up and down. So I thought that was pretty flash.
Oh, that's cool.
So look at
the girl. You see that girl, and you know that it's like a Nickelodeon snippy kind of snide, kind of like bossy. You can see that straight away. Jude Law.
Hold on, let's try to guess the personality type. So I say the girl there is kind of the kind of little girl boss leader of the group.
Hermione Granger-ish, kind of, you know.
With the bomber jacket.
More assertive than Hermione Granger.
Mm.
And then the little blue creature is comic relief. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's really tentative as well.
So blonde girl, RoboCop or RoboCop-A or RoboCop-S or whatever you want to call her. She is girl boss science genius. She's just brilliant at everything. Sort of academic genius. And then diversity hire number 5,329 there is kind of all-rounder.
Yeah, he's an all-rounder. He's a boy, but he's not especially talented or clever, but he's just the kind of like the avatar for the audience to just figure out the universe around him kind of deal.
Something like that. The APV character.
I think the kid Geordie LaForge, I gotta come up with something. That's gonna be fun. But I think that thing sticking out of there, that is a hearing aid also.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Love it, Greg. This is representation.
That is, that's
she's blind. Maybe she's deaf and blind.
That's a bone anchored hearing aid right there. For all the kids that have those, they can see themselves.
Jude Law is kind of becoming like the Gen Z father figure, mentor figure guy now. Like in Peter Pan, he was Hook.
He's still such a brilliant actor, but he's been wasted. Like he was brilliant as Hook, but my God, that movie.
I mean, it was the same thing in Fantastic Beasts. He was pretty good as Youngledore, but like apart from that, there was nothing else in the film to make it worth watching.
Remember at Star Wars Celebration last year, they brought out this little group of kids, and there was a white kid, and I thought, wait, what's going on here? How are they going to work that? And then I see this, and I go, oh, they chucked him in the blue alien suit. I get it. So it had to be something like that. But I don't know. I mean, if some little nippers like this, I guess that's fine. But it's stretching Star Wars to its furthest stretching point, I think.
Well, it's also creating a real a tonal problem because especially with the Acolyte, and unless they just disavow that and rip it off at Disney Plus or something, because everybody, whenever you talk about Star Wars being shit now, in the last couple of years, you hear this the defenders constantly drag out George Lucas's quote, like, "Oh, well, I made Star Wars 12-year-old boys," and they say, "Oh, it's just for kids. Grown-ups need to quit."
Okay,
but then we made the Acolyte, where we had brutal murders and beheadings and sex beach, and there is a I'll have to, in the next video there'll be a frame of it when Osha, which one is it? I don't know, picks up the lightsaber and Kamir's in the water and he says, "Feels good to have one in your hand again, doesn't it?" And she's in a pose where she's like in a real split squat, and she's holding the lightsaber out in front of her, and the camera angle, I mean, it's so obvious. It's a dick in her hand. So you have things like that, right? And it's TV-14, but then they make Space Goonies, and it's like, what is your brand at this point? Are you just throwing shit at a wall and you're just trying to figure out what sticks? Like, nobody seems to have an idea. And I think Despot brought this up a few weeks ago, that they don't have like a Star Wars Bible. That was you, right? That brought that up. There is no cohesive idea of what Star Wars is at Disney Lucasfilm that they can kind of always look to as a North Star. Like, this is the kind of thing that we want. And so they're just trying all this random crap. And we go from kind of mature TV-14, lots of innuendo, lots of horny characters, according to the showrunner. And then we go to this, all child actors, and it's going to be a silly romp through the galaxy. And it's like, what are you guys making? What is the point of this? I mean, other than blood sucking the money out of this dead franchise, what are you trying to do with this? And I don't think
it would be good if they did surprise us and it takes a sharp turn and it's like Andor, where the kids get arrested by the intergalactic government and they're put in a subterranean borstal for 5 years just assembling parts.
Yeah, we got a tribute scene to the greenhouse scene from Scum. I think I know what's going on. I think I know what's going on here. I reckon they saw the success of Stranger Things. After that, they decided that they were going to do a show to try to get a younger audience into Disney Plus, because a massive problem that Disney have is they do not have Gen Z, and they've completely lost that.
I mean, if someone comes into the office at Lucasfilm, and gives you that pitch, it's going to be Star Wars, it's going to be aimed at younger people that we need the demo for, and it's going to have elements of Stranger Things. You could see how they would just go, yeah, that clicks.
I think they're definitely going for that. They really want to sort of replicate the success of that. Make a kind of Stranger Things that brings in all the kids and the teenagers and families. And I mean, I haven't seen enough of it to make any judgments on. As a rule, I tend not to prejudge stuff. I mean, sometimes it's obviously awful, but I mean, Jude Law is a great actor, and that's it. Disney's reputation with child acting is horrendous. I mean, those two child actors they used in The Acolyte, that was shocking.
Awful.
Yeah, forgot about that.
There's an interview with Leslie Headland praising how amazing they are. Like, oh, we were so lucky to have them. They're incredible. We chose them out of other twins we could have had. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Talking about what Greg was saying earlier, when one character is talking, the rest don't know what to do. If you want to know how bad those two girls are on The Acolyte, look at the one who isn't talking. She just stands there like a block of wood, doing nothing and waiting for her turn to deliver her line like this. It's just dreadful.
And to do that thing that I hate most about that kids do, which is to add a kind of ah or ya sound to the end of their phrases for emphasis. So like, stop, don't. I hate that sound.
And given also they did it with Lars 17, the Peter Pan live action plagiarism. That child acting in that was shockingly bad. It was so dreadful. So given Disney's reputation for child acting, I have absolutely no reason to have any faith in this project at all, and I don't think anyone does.
Well, I think Jude Law's performance is going to make, and the contrast is going to make it that much more apparent that these kids don't know what's going on. I'm unsure if that elephant is CGI or if that is a robot.
He's a kid in a suit.
Oh, okay.
They might CGI the eyes in certain parts of its face. It looks like, I mean, when you see it move, it'll be pretty obvious, but like from a still, it can be hard to tell. But like the hair looks like Velcro, so I mean, to me, that looks practical.
Anyway, I just want to take a quick diversion to say hello to the likes of Ejector Kurt and Felonious Hack, who are among my new channel members, because I've got channel memberships going on now, and I've got a dozen of these wonderful folks. So I just want to make an appeal. If anyone, wants to help out the channel to keep the lights on here at the Echo Chamber, then it would be greatly appreciated if you could join the little team that's building up there, in order so that I can keep making more content disparaging the worst excesses of Hollywood. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about me. It's about you. It's about you realizing that this is really all about me. And so that's a journey that you have to undertake. But hear me when I say that I'll be there at the end of that journey. And the membership button on my channel page will also be there at the end of your journey. So if you want to join in and keep me in coffees, then I'd be very happy and very grateful. And I'm very grateful to the 12 folks who've already started to chip in. I see you. All right. So that's my little diversion. All right. This is what Tolkien envisaged.
There we go.
This looks like promo shots from that Once Upon a Time show that went fully off the rails after the first season.
This is like Damsel's extended family in a way. It's horrific.
Is that James Corden in the red in the top right there?
Just about.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of weight.
And next to him is the guy that used to appear on Late Night with the question mark suit telling you to get free money from the government. Oh, God, that's him.
The Riddler?
Yeah, basically, yeah. The scam Riddler.
God damn it. God, this is horrific to look at.
It's like a
hey, wait a minute. Where's
commercial?
Where's Don Lemonlass?
Where is he? Good question.
He's not there.
He's not there. No.
Yeah.
My God, it's not good.
He was such a landmark guy there to pave the way for future homosexual Puerto Ricans to see themselves riding to Helm's Deep. So he blazed a trail for all that demographic.
Jared Leto's in the background there. That's fantastic. He took a break.
Yes, Tan's looking pretty good.
I have a sickly, horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that the second season is going to be slightly better than the first. Which means it's going to be slightly harder to make shitting on it content. That's my feeling about this.
Yeah, and I also just think I believe it is going to be a very Velma 2 season 2 thing, where I think it's going to be not that bad, not as bad as the first, because the shock factor is gone. And they're also going to add some big battle scenes, it looks like. So that'll give people something like, well, at least there's battle. Like, kind of like Acolyte. You saw people like, well, the lightsaber fights are good. They're not, but, they're there. And there are laser swords, and that's fun, always. No, I agree with you. I think that it's going to be okay. But I think all the interest, both good and bad, is gone. I think the viewer numbers are going to be terrible, because most people are just like, oh, yeah, I think I remember that show. I'll get to it. I'll put it in the queue. I'll put it in my watch list. And it's just never going to get watched. There's no excitement for this at all.
Because I feel that if I'm going to be making videos, I'm going to be expending a lot of time discussing like the encyclopedic like machinations and backstory and lore and how people will fit in. And that's going to be a downer and a buzzkill. Yeah. And I think in retrospect, they tried to make... they wanted to have character arcs, so everyone in the first series was super pussy-ish, so that therefore they could evolve. And now they're kind of wearing armor and they're a little bit more hard-bitten, so it's going to be slightly harder to take the piss out of that. And I think they might have learned a couple of lessons here and there about why people didn't like the show. And I think it's also just going to be kind of plainer, more boring, and with those set pieces. So I think it's going to be harder to shit on. So I don't know, but I'll watch the first couple of episodes and see what I think.
Yeah, I'm interested to find out why they're dropping all 3 at once. Like, is it because there's a big arc across the first 3 hours, which I think gets back to what you guys had mentioned earlier, that there's just no structure, that they just they don't really edit, they don't structure things, they just, stories just sort of ramble on, and maybe they realized, oh, nothing actually happens for the first 3 hours of this show, so we need to drop all of it, because the first episode, the first hour of television won't be enough to get viewers interested.
Maybe that's something to do with the fact that they had such a shocking drop-off in like, what was it? 39% of people finished watching the series. So I think they want to make a more better effort to try and lock you in to make you watch those first 3.
I mean, if they had done that with season 1, like very little actually happens in season 1 until you get to episode 6, which is the one where Mordor is created. Yeah. So doing that obviously wouldn't have been an option. If they'd aired the first 3 episodes of season 1, the exact same thing would have happened. if I'm going to be like really hopeful for this, which I'm not, but let's just put that hat on for a sec. Arcane did exactly the same thing. It released, when it came out, it released the first 3 episodes as in one go, and then like a month later they released the next 3 and then the next 3. And the first 3 episodes of Arcane is like a really, really tight story before a time jump that then is the following 6 episodes. And given what we see in the trailer for Rings of Power Season 2, it looks like there is going to be at least 2 large-scale battles, is kind of what I'm seeing there.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is that they might, rush themselves towards one of them, end it on a dramatic cliffhanger, and be like, right, there you go, tune in next week and you can see episode 4. Whether it will be good, I mean, I think we all know that it is not going to be good, especially because like I feel like definitely when you start giving writers like this massive action set pieces, which was the case in episode 6 of season 1, the mistakes and the problems just come at you so quickly that it is so hard to keep track of them. Which is totally different to, a scene of like person 1 talking to person 2. Like there's only a couple of things that can go wrong at a time there. But at the very least, I'm expecting that there's going to be some big things happening in episode 3, because otherwise, why on earth would they do that? Like,
What's
that's
the big
not
battle? The big battle in the timeline. The battle of
fuck the timeline. Like that's out the window. That's been out the window.
Yeah. You have to divorce it. This is, I mean, it trashed lore so completely that there's not even any point in getting upset about. I mean, when I do if I do a review of this, I'll just come out with a disclaimer. I am not going to do any lore comparisons because this thing it has trashed lore so completely that there's not even any point in contextualizing it within the world of Tolkien. It's just it's its own thing now, and I'm going to judge it on that basis.
I have this feeling that I'm just going to sort of tolerate this. I wonder if putting out the 3 episodes, they might actually have shot themselves in the foot, because I don't think there will be a lot of people who say, no, I couldn't be bothered watching a chunk of 3 episodes. I know what this is. I'm not going to do that. Whereas if you just said, I'm going to release it 1 episode, you might have at least got a huge chunk of people who would say, all right, I'm willing to invest like 50 minutes in this.
1 or 2. Yeah, 3 hours is a lot of homework in a 1 week to catch up for the next one. And, I'm glad you brought up Arcane, Random, because I remember watching that one after it released. Like, I had heard about it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll get to that. And I was like a month or 2 later, it was a year later, I finally watched it. And I watched the first episode kind of later at night, and I had to work in the morning. And I was like, all right, I'll just watch the first episode. I've been meaning to do this. I'm not going to put it off. First episode ended, and I was like, fuck sleep. Second episode. Immediately, I needed to, like, it drew me in so fully. I was like, I don't need to sleep. That's fine. I'll caffeinate tomorrow. I need to see what happens. Whereas after the first episode of Rings of Power, first of all, I was like, I cannot believe they actually said rocks sink because they're looking downward and boats float because they're looking upward. But more than that, everything that happened was so god-awfully boring. I didn't even hate it. I really didn't. I was so passively indifferent to that show after the first episode, and all episodes therefore forward. But it just doesn't matter how many they release if it's not gripping in any way.
I actually started watching Arcane last week, and I'm well into it now, and it's fucking brilliant. One thing I noticed is that those first 3 episodes, it ends with this incredible crescendo, this amazing dramatic climax. I mean, if anybody's listening to this hasn't watched Arcane, watch Arcane, man. It's brilliant. It is so fucking good. And so I'm not even going to spoil it, even though it's... when did it first come out?
It was 2021.
2 years ago, 3 years ago,
yeah. Fuck. But I think it's kind of... am I wrong in saying that its reputation has since built and more people are watching it?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
so anyway, if you haven't watched Arcane...
I had that wonderful, luxurious feeling of knowing there's some great show ahead of me that I haven't started yet.
Yeah. If you haven't watched Arcane, guys, definitely go watch it. But at the end of episode 3, it has this 3-episode arc, and it's this incredible climax. And I was comparing that to a lot of the shows we're seeing recently, like House of Dragon, which, by the way, season 2 kind of fell on its ass at the end. That was really disappointing. That was so bad. House of Dragon or Rings of Power, incredibly slow. Or just take your pick from Disney Star Wars stuff or Disney Marvel. They're so fucking slow and boring, and nothing happens. Actually, I have a term to describe this now called plot stretching, where you take a plot that maybe will give you an episode of television and you just stretch it out into a 3-episode arc, and it's so boring and empty. Arcane is stacked. It is so packed in those first 3 episodes. Oh, you compare that to something like Rings of Power.
I would challenge someone to find me a, let's not say a line, but a scene in Arcane that you could remove that shouldn't be there.
It's so efficient.
It's unbelievably efficient. It's incredible. Like,
Cool. Has anyone ever seen, this is really obscure, but there was some guy who did he was really in quite quickly on the whole like computer animation stuff, AI kind of stuff, and he had Star Wars by Balenciaga, like a fashion design equivalent of it, and this looks like Lord of the Rings by an Italian fashion house, like it's been put through an AI filter. So that looks like
that reminds me of Zoolander.
It's like they're cringe blind. They just this production cannot see cringe.
Yeah,
well, I think they're just so full of themselves that they refuse to cut anything. I mean, obviously Zack Snyder had that problem, that he had the gall to release the director's cuts of his terrible movies. His 2 movies that should have been 1, because he just doesn't have the ability to look at his own work and say, yeah, I just don't need that. This whole sequence doesn't really need to be in this movie or this show. And so I think that's what you're seeing with these writers, where they refuse to cut any of their own work because they're smelling their own farts, and they think every bit of it is so profound and amazing.
Not even, bro. Yeah, it's a particularly Kiwi thing there. Damn, where's that come and gone? Now it's going to be stuck there forever because I can't find it in the chat. Damn, how do I solve that problem? I'll have to sort that out. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that would make sense. Just a quick little chat on this, because Greg, you were saying that you had this idea of bad films that are still fun, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, because I was kind of down on this, and it got 7,000 views and counting for my video. I don't know what happened.
Well, I watched your video, and I saw a lot of mixed reviews on it, and I went to see it with a buddy of mine, and it was kind of weird because as I was watching it, part of my brain was looking at it, from a movie film standpoint, and I was like, this is garbage. This is dumb. This redemption arc of this random Wolverine, and the fact that there are so many, they show you all of the timelines, so that totally reduces the stakes, and the drama that they were trying to build was dumb. And part of my brain was like, this is terrible. This little fireside chat that they're doing to pump up Wolverine before the big fight, all that, none of it landed. But then the other part of my brain was like, this is fucking hilarious, and I'm having a good time. Everybody just seems like they're having fun, and that makes me want to have fun. That, I think, is what really separates these movies. I think that Ryan Reynolds has hit upon something because he is having a good time. I don't think that he is attempting to be ironic. I don't think that he's attempting to jingle member berries and stuff. I think that he is just kind of a big fan of this stuff, and I think that he felt, I get the impression that he was like, I just want to have Blade and Elektra, and I want to have freaking Channing Tatum in here. And I just want to, we're just going to have a great time. We're going to crack jokes and have fun, and I'll have Chris Evans. We'll do a little switcheroo with him. And it just feels more genuine. And so although it was a terrible movie from a plot standpoint, it was fun. I was having a good time. Even when some of the jokes were a little overdone, some of them, I think some of them should have been rejected. There were a few that were obviously left in that were just, somebody should have been like, yeah, we needed standard of quality. But overall, I was having a good time, even while knowing this is not good quality. And I think that there's something to be said for that. Weirdly, I watched The Gray Man this weekend, Saturday night. My wife and I just wanted to watch something. We didn't really want to think about it, and that popped up on Netflix. You remember that one from 2 years ago?
Yeah, I saw it.
With Ryan Gosling is a spy. He's a gray man, and Chris Evans is the bad guy. And it was straight to Netflix. They produced it, and it was Russo brothers. And it was a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. It was a blast. I thought Chris Evans was a fun bad guy. I thought Ryan Gosling played the jaded, world-weary spy kind of guy really well. I thought the dialogue was pretty good. I liked all the characters. There was a bit in the middle where the action was so over the top that it was stupid. And I was like, okay, we're blowing up downtown France or something. There's a small war happening. Like, this is idiotic, but it was still fun. And I had a good time with that movie, even though it has structural flaws. I still had fun with it. And I think that there's a place for that when the people making it are they do want to entertain you. And I think that there's something that comes across, even when the quality isn't top tier, their sincerity comes across as just, hey, we want to give you a good time. And that, I think, elevates a work more than some of this shitty message crap that we're seeing.
All right, so good mid. I think the equivalent for me would be that recent what is it, the League of Ungentlemanly Warfare, whatever it was called, which is like it's a World War II action thriller kind of thing. And you can choose to be misanthropic and go, yeah, it's kind of shitty and it's got tons of problems, or you can just switch your brain off and go, yeah, whatever, fine, it's a cool film, guns, you know.
This only works if the characters are fun. It really helps if they're funny. So if you've got Deadpool and Wolverine played by two great actors, yeah, they can carry this. But if it's something like Godzilla X Kong, where it's 4 charisma vacuums walking around in front of a green screen, no, that doesn't work. Because people will try to take the same argument and say, well, that's why Godzilla X Kong worked, bro. That's why it was a fun movie, bro. No, it was fucking boring because the actors had zero charisma. They were shit. They weren't even characters. They were non-characters. They were character templates that they didn't do anything with.
Yeah,
it was awful. It's a terrible movie. It was so boring. But when you bring really fun characters into this just mess, bad world, and look, just to give one example of how poor the world build is, Wolverine is supposed to be the anchor being of this universe, and without Wolverine, the universe dies. Okay, who was the anchor being before Wolverine? If there was an anchor being before Wolverine, why didn't the universe appoint a new one after he died? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
There you go. 2 questions completely shatters the premise. It doesn't matter, though. It's a mess. It's a dumb, stupid mess. It's like a kid in his messy playroom smashing action figures together, and it's endearing, and the charisma of it just carries you. Yeah. And it's a fun, trashy movie. My favorite description of it was from Movie Cynic. He described it as a happy meal movie. It's junk, it's trash, but it tastes good.
Yeah.
The problem that I had with Deadpool and Wolverine is that, like, I agree with pretty much everything that you guys are saying about it. It got to the point where I nearly stopped watching because what I was expecting from the trailers was, because I like Deadpool 1, I think is very good. Deadpool 2, I think what I think of Deadpool 2 is what you guys are describing about Deadpool 3. And I feel like what I was expecting from the trailers is that they're going to just be like, okay, we need to get fucking 5 minutes of ridiculous MCU time travel Loki bullshit out the way. And because it's a Deadpool movie, they'll wink, wink, nudge, nudge, fourth wall break and all the rest of it. And they'll get that out of the way in 5 minutes. And then they will just pull the ripcord and have fun for the next 2 hours. Repeatedly in this movie, they kept doing lengthy exposition dumps that were not particularly fun to listen to, because partly they were nonsensical, and there were just long stretches of the film where Deadpool wasn't really able to be Deadpool. It very much, to me, felt like a neutered version of Deadpool. Like, for one thing, the drug jokes, like, they did make, some of that made me laugh, but then they kept doing it, and it was very clear that it was mandated that they couldn't actually do it. So yeah, like, what I was hoping for would have been a lot more fun if they had just crammed all of the exposition into one place, and then you could actually let the characters be fun. But I wasn't able to have a huge amount of fun with the movie as a result.
Yeah, the only thing that did pull me out a couple of times was like that's an excellent example, like the drug thing, or the pegging thing or whatever. Like all of those jokes sort of all fall under the same umbrella of we're under a new ownership and they have different standards. Yeah. And they made that joke about 18 times. And I think the thing that really, like I said, the plot of that was dumb, but I don't care. I've shoved that to the side. The thing that actually did bother me about the movie is that some of the jokes they kept doing the same type of joke, and they were really focused on the "we used to be Fox" joke, and I think that blinded them from other just random, visual comedy they could have been doing, or just something other than, hey, Channing Tatum was going to have a movie, but he didn't, and look, he's here, and remember Elektra, and this used to be Fox, and Disney has different standards. They won't let us do Coke on screen, and like that's funny. Like it's not that they shouldn't do it. It's just they shouldn't have done it so much. Or one example was they did the same joke, literally the same joke twice, when he tells Wolverine they're going to make you do this to your 80, and that was fun. That was a funny bit. And then he said it again, and I'm like, that's the exact same joke. You didn't even try to reword that or go at it at a different angle or something. Like you literally just told the same joke twice, and they went too far into that, and I think it prevented other types of humor that would have fleshed it out a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. Well, Greg, you can take us through a quick run through this because this is coming out this week or some such.
Yeah, it looks so boring. So you're gonna play as this gal, Kay Vess, I think. God, that chin I'm jealous of that chin.
Could crack walnuts with that chin.
Is this Star Wars? Sorry, what is this?
This is supposed to be a AAA Star Wars open world third person game.
It's called Star Wars Outlaws, and you're gonna play as Kay Vess in the Rise of the Empire, and you're basically an underground smuggler. And you're going to explore the Star Wars black market underground. You're going to work for Jabba. You're going to work for other crime lords and kind of rise through the ranks and just be a general scoundrel in the Star Wars universe. And that idea sounds like a lot of fun. But it is being made by Ubisoft, which is a horrific company, which has terrible game models. And pretty much everything about it, other than the concept, looks horrible. It's a giant empty world. It's boring looking. You don't, for all the talk about seeing yourself, it's only weird that you don't get to see yourself when they want to have this, like, there's no character creator. You don't get to be you in the Star Wars universe. You have
to choose your pronouns
in the Star Wars universe.
No, because there's no character creator. You have to play as Kay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The combat is dumb looking. The enemy AI is awful. Like there's been a lot of extended gameplay at this point released, and it looks like all the other shows. It looks like they went, hey, it's Star Wars, and that's it. And you're going to fucking buy it. And you didn't have to put any effort in whatsoever.
Echo, I'm going to give you one guess. Can you guess the planet where it all starts on?
Is it going to be like a deserty kind of remote planet, which is kind of out of the way?
I'll give you a clue. Anakin would hate this planet.
All right. So I'm guessing it's got like a substance which is quite coarse and gets everywhere. And if there's a center of the galaxy, then you're in the furthest expanse away from that. That's what I'm imagining this is going to take place.
It's awful.
I mean,
there's
of
a
course,
there's a lot of pricing bullshit that's going on with it. It's real scummy pricing tactics that they're trying to paywall shit. But yeah, it looks awful. It is just the continued degradation of the Star Wars name by just slapping it on anything and hoping that will sell it more. And it looks like trash.
Well, the only thing which is interesting about this is the prospects that are suddenly opened up by the idea of a droid wearing a trench coat. Because surely now you could have C-3PO who's wearing a diamond print sweater vest. Could be an option. So that opens up a whole new categories of ideas you can go through there.
I looked up this game to get some background research done. This has been in development since 2019, and 600 at its height, 600 game developers have worked on this. Yeah, and when you look at how bad this looks, it looks really brown and empty. And if you go through the YouTube comments, people are saying things like, "Relax, bro, it's the GameCube version," which is a 20-year-old console. But I'm not even kidding. Like the explosions and the gunshot impact on enemies, they look fucking dreadful. They're so poorly rendered. The graphics suck. There's no weight to anything. Like she throws a thermal detonator and it's this pissant little GTA San Andreas explosion. It's awful. And it just looks like trash. And to say nothing of the fact that the main female character has obviously been uglified because that's just the agenda now. We can't have pretty good looking women in video games anymore because that would draw the male gaze, and the male gaze is evil. It's just it looks like shit. It's a big, boring, empty looking. Now I could be wrong. Maybe it's a masterpiece, but I would be shocked because everything I've seen so far suggests poor AI, very poor gameplay, pretty shit graphics, ugly color palette, fucking Tatooine for the billionth time, and no character creator. You can't play as the bad guys. You're limited in where you can go. You can't go around the spaceship in flight. Like the space combat, the dogfighting looks terrible. It's just, it looks like trash, man. And the fact that 600 devs worked on this for years is astonishing.
The speeder fights are apparently terrible. I've watched a few reviews. So like I said, that this was announced in stages, and it was announced with no gameplay whatsoever. And they just said, here it is, we're making this game. Here's a little cinematic trailer, and you can pre-order it, which I was fucking pissed about. Because I hate that trend in gaming. But then they invited people in, and they showed them, they let them play for 1 hour, and it was 3 little sections. So about 15, 20 minutes a piece. It was, little polished areas. And a lot of those reviews were like, it's not terrible, whatever. But that was a very small vertical slice. Then recently, a lot of game tubers were allowed to play 4 hours of it. And I've watched several of those reviews, and I've also seen another gameplay reveal that they themselves put out. And it is exactly what you're describing. It is the speeder combat is terrible. The space combat is terrible. The enemy, they just stand there and let you shoot them. You're supposed to be this smuggler, but you go to these bases with 25 enemies, and you sneak up and you bash them all, and you shoot them like you're Rambo. All of a sudden, the world is large and empty. The missions are just very basic. The only praise that I've ever seen about it is just that when you are not on mission and you're just kind of in these hub areas, the general atmosphere feels kind of cool, that you're walking around. You're a smuggler. It's like it's the underground of Star Wars. And I've seen a lot of reviewers say that atmosphere feels cool, but then you have to go still play the game, and it sucks, and it's garbage. And it's trending toward this minimum viable product that we're seeing all over the place. Like it plays, it won't crash when you boot it up. There are missions, you can shoot people, but it is the trending toward it's the argument of mediocrity that Despot was talking about earlier, that it's not dog shit. And so people will say, well, it's fine. Well, I'm not going to spend $70 on fine. I'm going to spend $110 on fine. And I'm also not going to spend hours of my life on fucking fine. And I'm tired of that shit.
Exactly. Like, what happened to quality? Look at Nintendo in terms of the pricing. Like, what Ubisoft are basically doing is they're, what is it, $110, $120, $130. They have 3 tiers.
Yeah.
And if you get the maximum $130 tier, you get a season pass for the multiplayer, and you get early access, which doesn't mean shit. That just means you get it on launch day. And if you don't pay for early access, you get it 3 days after launch day. And I don't know, you get some other pointless goodies. Look at what Nintendo did with Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, very anticipated latest release in the Zelda mainline series. They charge $70 for it. You buy it, it's yours. There's no DLCs, there's no multiplayer season passes or any of that bullshit. There's no subscriptions, just $70, it's yours. They sold 21 million copies, and it's a brilliant game, and people generally love it.
Yep.
Do that. None of this Ubisoft bullshit where they're trying to get you to subscribe to their service or subscribe to the season pass, or you have 4 different prices for the fucking launch product. No. One product, one launch date. Go back to that, you fucking scumbags, because I hate what is happening to the gaming industry.
It's awful. They're now designing games with pieces missing, so that they can then offer them as a bonus.
The bonus mission. In other words, if you don't pay us max price, we're not going to give you the full game. You parasites.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. Imagine that, like you pay for an album, but you got to pay extra a little bit later to get that cool track at the end.
This is also wrong in concept, because I was thinking about that stupid fucking Goonies Star Wars show. I can't even remember its name. What's it called?
The Skeleton Crew.
The Skeleton Crew, right? Who the fuck asked for the Skeleton Crew? Do you know what? You give me a Star Wars show, I'll do one. I'll keep it simple. I'll make Road Squadron, or I'll make a pod racer show. And we're going to go all around the galaxy on a 2-episode arc. In one episode, they prep for the race, and then the next episode, they do a big, crazy pod race. And our main character is the only human who pod races. He's like a guy, he's like 20 or something. And his mentor is the other only human who could pod race, and he's like 50, and he lost an arm during a pod race. And that'll be cool. Let's do that. Let's have a pod race show. Or let's do Rogue Squadron. Who the fuck asked for the Goonies in space?
I'll do you one more on your thing. We're going to take your show, and we're going to have the extra element where they're being like hunted by some Imperial forces and they always just stay one step ahead of them when they go from planet to planet, and they go on these pod races. And then you've got that cool element there as well. And the characters are really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Simple. Just keep it simple. Just give them what they want. You don't need to do anything special or crazy or amazing or original. Just a simple show that people want to watch, a fun pod racing show.
And you know what else happens? Like they go from place to place and they do these pod races, but they also get caught up in local events and they have to sort out a little kind of dilemma that's happening in the community. So really they prove they've got a heart of gold as well as winning these pod races. And then the evil bad guys from the Imperial thing, they're hot on their trail, and so they have to go to the next place and bang, next episode. Oh, give me the money.
You'd fit.
They somehow didn't learn a single lesson from Mandalorian season 1 and 2, if you want to count that. Season 1 was that. It was just, here's a Star Wars story. This guy's a bounty hunter. He's doing cool shit. He gets caught up in something and then he resolves it. And it was just fun. Like, if they made Kung Fu from the 70s in Star Wars, it would be the coolest damn thing ever. Oh, yeah. It doesn't have to be complex.
Yeah, but nobody asked for a AAA open world game where you're a smuggler. Like, if you'd asked Star Wars fans, what do you want? They would have said, we want an open world Star Wars game where you get to be a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Like that's what they would have wanted. And you can go to different planets and look at the bounties. And then you actually have to make an effort to find the target and then go and get. And it might be a very low level target, but if you go after a low level target, the reward is very low. But if you go after a high level target, you're very unlikely to get it unless you've leveled up. That's perfect, you know? But instead of this trash that no one wants.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then on this, when you go pod racing, there's like this kind of villain antagonist who keeps turning up to a lot of these pod races, and it's like a running theme. You know, and they're like mirror images of each other, and they have like a love-hate kind of relationship, and then, you know, like the stuff writes itself. It's not complicated, Disney.
Yeah, it's very basic, and people would love it. They would turn up for it.
This is starting to sound like Fast and Furious in space.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to skip Borderlands altogether because I don't give a shit. And just going to do this.
Well, can I ask just quickly? Have any of you actually seen Borderlands yet?
No.
Because
I've seen it. It's fucking dreadful.
Okay.
It's just what kills me is that I feel like Borderlands would have been the perfect place to bring rotoscoping back, and it would have been amazing. Yeah. And the fact, like, so many missed opportunities, but it would have really been a standout if they were like, hey, we're going to rotoscope this shit and we'll just, you know, so many.
I think, Greg, here, video game actors are officially on strike over AI. I think they're on the wrong side of history. Technology is going to push them out of a job easy, because if a douche like me can make videos with voices for characters in various scenarios, these kind of jobs are dead, I'm afraid, unless you're a celebrity and you've got a recognizable voice which has a leverage to it. If you were just in this business doing voiceover work in video games, sorry, you don't have a career anymore. Choose a different career path.
Kids, if you're listening, because I know we're big among Gen Alpha, if you want to be a composer or an actor, think again, kids. It's not going to happen. AI is going to eviscerate those industries.
Yep.
What worries me, though, is that it's going to take over, but it's going to leave us, the audience, with really bland crap. Like you guys were talking about in Alien, with Rogue Squadron, they try to recreate the guy's voice, and it just doesn't have the same cadence. It doesn't have the same emotion. That's my issue with AI being used everywhere. It's got its uses, and I use it. But when you allow it to create large chunks of your project, because it's an amalgamator is what it is. It's an aggregator. And what you end up with is median, midline, average crap. That's what AI is going to give you. And that can be fine in some applications. But when you're trying to make a standout show, or you're trying to have video game characters that really are selling emotion, they're going to lean toward AI, and they're going to end up with middling crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I have that issue as well, even in my own videos, because I do use AI voices, but I can only use it for placid line reads. If a line read is really like passionate and angry or something, I have to do it. So, for example, in my Acolyte video, I have a little scene where Jackie yells at Yord and tells him his hair looks like dog shit. I had to voice that because an AI can't get that kind of anger and spite in there.
I tried to do a little cut-in thing where it was Daleks complaining about the state of modern Doctor Who, and I tried to like feed in the Dalek voice sample into the AI, and it couldn't cope with it. So it just sounded like someone some mad person screaming into a shitty microphone. So bad. But I get worried when I'm listening to an audiobook on YouTube and it's like I'm an hour into it and I don't realize it's AI until it's like and then I was, amazed as always at the faculty of Sherlock Holmes's mind when suddenly and I realized, oh no, I've been listening to AI for an hour. Fuck, it's scary. Anyway, so that's the strikes there. I don't really want to talk about these UK riots. I think we covered them before. I don't know, it just looks kind of shitty and weird. But I did want to talk about this. Constable's The Haywain, one of the most famous pictures in all of Britain, to be presented as a contested landscape in the British Museum, or what museum is it? The National Gallery. So it's putting it up as a contested landscape because it looks too bucolic, and Constable didn't include enough down in their luck, downtrodden urchins and hardworking folk, so therefore wasn't realistically depicting the era of the time. So therefore it has to come with a kind of disclaimer that it's a contested landscape, socioculturally. And I thought, you wankers, because now, instead of just being at a point where you're not having enough diversity included, this is being contested because of what, by omission, it omits to show hardworking regular folk, and therefore, I suppose, the class system and the real life struggles of hardworking people, rather than just being, a classic image of the rural English countryside. So that's where we've got to now.
Douglas Murray has written about this, and he's talked about this quite a bit. He's one of the few sort of public intellectuals and writers that talks about how the direction of British museums. And basically the point he makes is that if you are a museum director in the UK today, you are first and foremost a political activist. Your job is to push a left-wing narrative of history, and that's basically your primary concern. So they will come up with anything, any shite they can think of to try to recontextualize British history, or to shit on it, or to make the British out to be the bad guy, or to take the great artists of British history and to make them out to be villains of some sort, because that's their main job. Their job is not to put on good exhibits that people want to see. It is to propagandize to the fullest extent possible British history, and that is an absolute plague in the UK throughout museums all over the country. For example, the National Museum of Wales did some bizarre thing where they had an Arab guy or a Syrian guy come in and speak in Arabic about how terrible everyone in the museum was and how evil they were because of empire. I don't even know, but this kind of stuff has been going on all over the UK, and it's been going on for years. So this is nothing new, and it shouldn't surprise anyone. Museum directors in the UK now are political activists.
Yeah, this is bad. I mean, if you're the curators of the National Gallery, you should be above this, right, Random? This is it's scary and worrying to me.
Well, I've been to multiple parts of the UK that look exactly like that. I could probably go on my phone and find like 20 photos of a landscape that looks something like that. And also, I can't quite tell because the image is a little bit small, but the two guys or I don't know that they're guys, excuse me, the two people on the little like trailer thing. Yeah. Are they fishing? I can't quite tell what they're doing, but presumably they're doing some kind of work, right?
Yeah, they're taking the thing across the river, I think, or through the river. Yeah, it's not quite clear.
Okay.
But, yeah. So they're doing, fairly conventional labor, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, this kind of stuff just disheartens me because it's so unnecessary, and to have such a terrible blind spot when, if you're the curators of the National Gallery, you ought to be above this kind of stuff. So it makes me a little forlorn because of, the precedents it sets and the weird suggestions about what could come next. So it bothers me. Greg, should we abolish the Electoral College? That would piss me off.
God, no.
I
think it's a fantastic invention. I just think that the all or nothing in each state, I think that is the problem with how it is being run right now. I live in Illinois there with the 19 votes, and Illinois, I think for the last 30, 40 years has been pretty much 40 to 60 Republican and Democrat. Every now and then maybe it gets up closer to 55-45, but it goes Democrat. We don't get ads over here for the most part. No one comes to the state. Nobody bothers campaigning because the state is a completely foregone conclusion. Whereas if they awarded the electoral votes proportionally to the popular vote in that state, then it would change the entire landscape. And every time this comes around, it really comes down to 2 or 3, 4 battleground states. And those end up being the only states that actually matter, where everybody else is just kind of stuck. If you're in a red state and you don't like it, too bad. If you're in a blue state, you don't like it, too bad. And I think that would, if they awarded the votes proportionally, it would also allow for third parties to pop up too, because they can't get a single vote if they can't win a state. And how are they going to do that? It's ridiculous.
Greg, if they abolished, I was going to say, if they abolished the electoral college, do you think that voting patterns would change because the incentives change? People then are incentivized to show up and vote for the candidate?
I think that it's possible, but I also think that the strength in large cities I think they would be more incentivized to vote. And since they outweigh every other area so badly, you basically would have politicians just visiting large populous centers, the 6, 7, 8 large cities in the country. That's where they would go to try to vie for people. And the rest of the country would just be, well, too bad. And you would get very city-centric policies that would start to develop that would favor them and not the rest of the country.
I mean, I was thinking about
if
this.
It was just done by a popular vote, then the Democrats have won just purely on popular vote nationwide in 1992, 96, 2000, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, and we'll probably do it again in 2024.
That's disastrous. But my point is, if it was done by popular vote, you would see more people showing up to vote for Republicans who are distant. I mean, if you're a Republican in New York, you're not showing up to vote. You know what I mean? So it might change in that respect.
That's true.
And I think that you're right. Like, it would change and it would incentivize people, but I think that I think the electoral college system is still good because it weights each state, like it caps out how much, because California has a populace that is larger than pretty much every European country. It's enormous. Texas is the same way. And they would outweigh everyone else so drastically that the campaigning would still take place in only those small areas. So I do think that the college system is genius. It's just that we've polluted it with the winner take all system. Because you're 100% correct. There's a lot of Republicans in California and New York that just, they don't care. They're not engaged at all, because why bother when their state is overwhelmingly going Democrat? And they would be, you would see voter numbers rise sharply, I believe.
Well, you got this interesting thing in Maine and Nebraska. You can see there that where they divide up their college votes. So in Maine, it's divided. So like in the northern, more remote, rural part of Maine, that votes for Trump, and then the more urban bits vote. So you get like 2 from Maine, and then 1 go to Trump, and the same with Nebraska. And the interesting thing is, like, if Kamala Harris wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, she would still need that tiny little. Right in the middle of the country there, you can see in Nebraska with that tiny little 1 blue thing there. Mm-hmm. That could be the thing that decides the election, which is so fascinating to me.
I'm kind of more interested in this election than I have been in more recent ones because of the whole switch up and everything. And I'm interested to see if, Kamala gets a bunch of votes. And it's been great comedy to watch people suddenly pretend to care about her when nobody has cared about her for years. And when Joe Biden was elected, she ran for president that year and was, I believe, the second person to drop out of the race.
Yeah, she fizzles out really early. Just didn't connect.
It was super early.
It pisses me off when they call her the nominee. She's not the nominee. No one fucking nominated her. She's the appointee. She was appointed.
Until today or tomorrow, she'll be official. But if you go back and watch the debates with her and Tulsi Gabbard in the 2020 debates, she looks stupid, and Gabbard absolutely mops the floor with her and makes her look like an absolute idiot. And I think she came in 4th in the next state and then dropped out immediately afterward.
It was weird. I can't quite square it. There's something about becoming the nominee just added this weird kind of luster to her, which seems very artificial, very nominal. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But certainly, just for sheer drama, I've never seen anything like this. 100 days of just action-packed drama. It's you Yanks are capable of just twisting things, shifting things up pretty intensely.
I mean, we've seen it before. We've seen trying to animate a robot and make people like it. When Mitt Romney ran, we did the exact same thing. So we've actually seen this before.
Yeah.
They were coaching Mitt Romney, like, drink your water with ice cubes in it, spice things up a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I'm sort of tried to purge myself of the angst because it's bad for my nervous system, this stuff. So I see in the betting markets that the Democrats are probably more likely than not to win the House. So even if Trump wins, it's not going to be the end of the world for me because if the Democrats have got the House, they can block his tax stuff. They can block repealing the Affordable Care Act. I don't think much would really change. So I'm just reducing my heart rate in that sense.
Yeah, that's another comedy that I'm seeing a lot. People are like, if Trump wins, it's over. The country is doomed. And I'm just like, he already was president, and like no one died because of no one was put in prison. There were no gay concentration camps when he was president. Like, I don't know why people are acting as though he's an unknown quantity that he's going to destroy the country. I think it's typical hyperbole, but it sounds especially stupid when you're talking about a former president.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll just wrap up with some generous super chats. Hemorrhoid hurts. Oh my God, you poor creature. What is that? Australia, $2. I enjoy this stream so much. I try not to be a cock. Well, noted. That's excellent. That's a good perspective.
I think I saw him become a member as well.
Oh, that's great news. Fantastic. And that leads us on to our old friend M8566 became a YouTube member. Oh, this is such good news. It's all over the place. Oh, BBB. Boy, am I glad the boys are back. Echo, I'm visiting New Zealand in December. I'd love to get a beer with you sometime while I'm there. I sent you an email with my plans. Yes, I have seen that email. I think I might be up in Kerry for that duration, but I'll send you an email just to see the timetable and such. So fingers crossed we can have a beer. M8566 gifted 5 Echo Chamberlain memberships. Oh, it's raining memberships. Hallelujah. It's crazy out there, guys. Laurel Van Willigan. Oh my God, look at that sum. 50 smackaroos.
Bam.
Thanks for these. Please keep making them. Well, off the back of that's going to fund at least the next couple. So thank you, Laurel. Very much appreciated.
You better spend those US dollars while they're worth something.
Yeah. Damn, Despot. Are those guns legal in Ireland?
They're not, man. They're illegal in Ireland. That's why I live in South Korea. They're just about legal here. I mean, they are. I had to get them registered as deadly weapons, but once that was done, I was okay.
Yeah. And what have we got here? Hemorrhoid Hurts became a YouTube member. All right, great. So it's raining memberships out there, and I appreciate all that. Yeah, it does make all the difference in the world. So thank you all out there, team. Now, right. So our poor. I have to get rid of Hemorrhoid Hurts because I keep leaving these things on the screen. So that's the
you have to get rid of your hemorrhoids? Did you?
Where is this the one right here?
I love his profile picture as well.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, profile picture is great. I rewatched that movie for my June review, and I concluded that the first hour and a half is pretty decent, and then it just falls to fucking pieces in the last 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just
all right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So poor Random, it's deep into the middle of the night there. So we appreciate you staying up, and it just remains. Yeah, for me to thank the usual crew. It's good to be the boys are back in town after a little bit of a layoff, and so it's great to be connecting with all of you there out in YouTube world. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Greg, you got anything to impart to the folks?
Got a live premiere coming up for the first time on my channel.
Oh
Friday morning.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that goes. Yeah, I'll be picking your brain about that to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Despot, any thoughts you want to impart to the folks?
No, I'm just working on my Acolyte video. It's going to take a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I have gained a new respect for you, Random, Mauler, all you guys that do long stuff, Platoon. Mine's 2.5 hours, and it's taken me a full month or 5 weeks. And I don't even cover 100% of the footage like you guys do. Like I just, whenever I get tired of editing, it's just my face for 10 or 15 seconds. And it's taking me forever. And I'm like, how do you guys do this consistently? I'm actually growing to hate it at this point, and I want to premiere it because I want to work on something else.
Yeah. I did a 40 minutes. 40 minutes just about killed me.
script. I'm like 7,000 words into the script for my next video after the Acolyte. I need a palate cleanser, so I'm doing something positive.
That's why I did the Rings of Power, because I just was like, I just gotta work on something else for a minute and just stretch and just get away from it for a second.
All right. And Random, what can the folks expect from you?
Well, as we know, I don't know if chat knows, Rings of Power Season 2 comes out in, I think it's 9 days time, 10 days time, something like that. So yeah, I'll be doing that. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of rammed working silly hours video editing. So I mean, yeah, stuff is coming. Stay tuned. All
right, cool. All right, well, yeah. So that's it from us. So it just remains for me to say kakiti ano, harera, and we'll see you next time. So goodbye, YouTube.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.